Hello and welcome to Fresh Face Comics, the comic book podcast where a lifelong comic book reader guides his friend through the world of comics for the first time. My name is Joey Morgan, the aforementioned lifelong reader. With me, as always, is Jacob Licklider, the aforementioned newbie.
Sing, O Muse, of what great hour sprung forth the daughter of Hippolyta.
Hippolyte, Jacob. Hippolyte.
It is pronounced Hippolyta.
Okay, see, that's weird to me. I don't get that. So, like, they're spelled two different ways, but are they supposed to be pronounced the same?
Yes, it's a Greek thing.
That's so fucking stupid. I hate that. Anyway, welcome to Fresh Face Comics. We're talking about the first volume of George Perez's Wonder Woman run. This covers the first 14 issues of his run on Wonder Woman from 1987 to I'm not sure exactly what year, to be honest.
I think he stopped in like 91, 92?
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He ran for a while.
Yeah, he was on that. So we're covering the first volume of this today. Very excited to talk about this. We also did watch some adapted media for this. Not that I don't think any version of Wonder Woman has directly adapted the George Perez run. But there are some clear influences in a lot of Wonder Woman media today. So
yes,
more on that later. So for those listening, also we are reading volume 2 next time. That's issues 15 through 24 plus the first annual. And then for episode 26, we're covering a new block of stories. So stick around for that. We'll have the reveal for those episodes at the end of the next episode. Just figure I get that all out of the way for those who aren't going to listen to the whole thing. But as always, let's kick off by jumping into our non-spoiler section. So Jacob, we've had a few Wonder Woman appearances in other books that we've read. She's shown up in our Justice League stuff and things like that. But what is your experience with Wonder Woman aside from the comics that we've read? Like she's had like her Justice League appearances, but that's pretty much all we've seen her in so far.
So this is interesting because I think I really can represent the general public. Like, the only Wonder Woman that I had really experienced was the theatrical cut of Justice League and the theatrical cut of Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice.
Interesting.
Which is, I hadn't seen either of the solo films. I think as a character, she's one that DC does not promote nearly as much as they perhaps should.
Oh, definitely. I remember, actually fairly recently in DC, they announced a whole line of Wonder Woman books and did a big crossover event, and then canceled 2 or 3 of them, leaving pretty much only the main Wonder Woman title left now again. And it's just what the fuck? They made that push recently and just and pulled back on it because I guess it wasn't selling as much as, say, Batman or Superman. But yeah, definitely, I agree. DC just doesn't promote Wonder Woman as much as they should. But that said, what is the George Perez Wonder Woman about?
So, the George Perez is. So this is hard because Wonder Woman as a character has gone through a lot of incarnations. I've said it before. I said it on the last video we released. If you haven't gone and watched that, if you're listening to this after this, go ahead and watch a video we did on what we would do with the DC film universe.
That's on YouTube. You can go check that out on Blood Donut Studios. So.
But I'll reiterate that here. She has a creation. She was created in the 40s by a very oddly progressive person, especially for the 40s. But with Crisis on Infinite Earths happening, this is the crisis has happened, and George Perez wants to reboot Wonder Woman. So they gave George Perez basically a monthly series to plot and draw.
And it's his baby. There are other people helping on this, like Len Wein being one of the big ones there, and Bruce Patterson early on. But this is the George Perez show right here. And I think also quite luckily we've covered the main inspiration for why this book exists as it does in Teen Titans Volume 2, previously on episode 17. And so we even talked about on that episode, in the introduction that Marv Wolfman wrote there, it was Marv Wolfman's push to have some Greek mythology there in Teen Titans, not used to the best ability. I think we all agreed upon in that episode.
Yes,
but as Marv Wolfman said in his introduction there, that is what sparked George Perez's interest in Greek mythology and what eventually inspired this entire run on Wonder Woman.
Yeah. And the first thing when you sit down to read this book, Perez just cares.
Oh
Like
yeah, like he has done his homework. Like it is
he's
so
done his homework
apparent.
in Greek mythology. He realizes that Wonder Woman is a character who basically fills the girl role in like the terms of the Justice League. Let's be honest, like she's in your classic Justice League lineup, she is the girl.
Yeah.
Um, everyone else is a dude. Every other comic has either, unless it's been a team book, it's been we've covered has been a male superhero. Um, and Perez, I think, with this really wants to one define the character for the modern age, um, especially since Wonder Woman as a character has her origin in World War II,
Hmm.
and it's linked so directly that like it's been 40 years since World War II at the start of this book.
Yeah.
We want to update it for the modern age, give something for girls to look like the girls to look up to because Perez clearly understands girls read comics. Like
Yeah.
there's
Absolutely.
there's this weird narrative in society that there's some things that are boy things and some things that are girl things.
But comics are so versatile,
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
Like even the stuff aimed at boys, there's cross gender appeal.
Yeah,
Like
definitely. Definitely. But yeah, yeah. So in short, that's what a lot of this run is about. It's incorporating that Greek mythology into the Wonder Woman mythos, and and
and
on
it's
that, I
giving us two very strong arcs to start with across 14
mhm.
issues.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, definitely. But actually, before we start talking about what those arcs are, though, I want to bring up one of our first Twitter questions. Jamie at Jamie_season 7 says, "Do you prefer it to the other George Perez things you've covered?" So previously, we did mention it already. We've only covered his and Marv Wolfman's first two volumes of Teen Titans. I'm curious because I definitely have a definitive answer to this. If I was just comparing this first volume with the first, so what is it, 16 issues of Teen Titans,
yes.
what I prefer. What do you prefer actually?
So that's difficult. Like this, honestly, I might prefer this slightly if we're doing the first 16 issues of New Teen Titans, comparing it as a whole. If we were
Mhm.
just doing those like the volume two issues, the volume two of New Teen Titans edges it out ever so slightly.
So of the
Uh,
collected editions, what your ranking would be like Teen
yeah,
Titans Volume 2, Wonder Woman Volume 1, and Teen
one,
Titans Volume 1.
yes. Um,
I could almost agree with that. I think I'd still probably put Wonder Woman above both of them, but I could see that.
perhaps there's one big thing near the end of this book that soured me just a little bit. Like not to dislike anything, but just
Yeah, I already know what
it's
that is, and I
it's
kind of get
stopped this
that.
book from being perfect.
Mhm.
Um,
Jamie also did say just a Wonder Woman point in general, but you two should definitely cover Gail Simone's run. And I just wanted to bring that up because uh, Gail Simone's run was in the running of like when I was like, okay, let's sit down and do some like Wonder Woman comics here. And I was like laying out like what runs I'd like to do, what would be good starting points for him. Like Gail Simone was in there. But the three it came down to was like Gail Simone, Brian Azzarello, and this. And overall, it's George fucking Perez.
yeah,
So I
I
chose
mean,
George Perez.
you have
Um,
to.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
So, but
I
odds are we will probably do Gail Simone
yeah,
someday. So,
because I mean, Wonder Woman as a character needs more love,
yeah,
just in
yeah,
general,
definitely.
and you need to have an author on it who is writing it. I'd also say though, I will say one thing that this has that New Teen Titans has 8 more years of experience for Perez or so. So the
Hmm.
art is Perez like even
Oh,
better.
like George Perez's Wonder Woman art is like my favorite art I've ever seen of his. Like of the stuff that I've read of his. Like I love it. It's so good,
Yes.
so fucking good.
And he's
Um,
mixed with Bruce Patterson, who's doing most of the inks, at least for this volume.
mhm.
Though I think he does some of his own inks at one point.
I
Um,
think so. Yeah,
yeah, because inkers are different. But he's doing the art.
yeah.
He's plotting it. This is also a run that very easily could have failed at issue 3 when the guy who was actually scripting the first two issues dropped out.
Hmm.
Uh,
Now, luckily, Perez was saved by the
Len
fucking
Wein.
yeah, but one of the granddaddies of all of comics. You know, it's Len Wein. Um, yeah, so like he came in and really does honestly, replace was it Greg Potter?
Greg
Um,
Potter.
as a scripter on it. But honestly, does it even better than Greg Potter did. I prefer Ween's scripts so much more.
I think Potter
Personally.
is perfect, especially for that first issue.
Yeah, definitely.
Like,
But like afterwards, like you need a bit more of a professional, I'd say. And
yeah,
Ween knows how to tighten his scripts up a bit more, I'd say.
and I think it helps that Ween has worked with Perez before, clearly,
Hmm.
because Ween would have
Well,
been
well,
an
keep in mind,
editor.
Ween has worked with most people at DC, so
Yeah, but
uh,
Potter's like a name who you really don't see on anything.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
I tried to look in and I could find very little about who Greg Potter actually was. So if someone's listening to this, go to our YouTube or go to our Twitters and just if you can give us anything about who
Tell
Greg Potter
tell us who
is.
who Greg Potter was, please. I would love to know. I want to go to our next Twitter question then. English Giraffe at English_giraffe says, would it be a good jumping on point for any newcomers wanting to get into Wonder Woman? Jacob?
Yes, I will say this has a lot of distinction mainly because it's immediately post-crisis. So you don't have some of the things that modern comics have where some things can lean into writing strong female characters as tough and especially men who write strong female characters in like say the mid 2000s to like have a tendency to do to not really give them a whole lot of character. Perez has all of his characters dripping with character.
Hmm.
Um, and there is a lot of very smart decisions in including political commentary, specifically about the time, that I think just rings true throughout history,
Hmm.
as well as just some of the most beautiful colors in like in a comic in general and just in a comic pre modern comics. Like
Yeah, yeah.
there's something really soft about all the tones in
Yeah,
uh,
definitely. Yeah, it's
uh
great. So, yeah, definitely great for newcomers to Wonder Woman. It's one of the reasons I chose it as Jacob's first proper Wonder Woman comic. Yeah, moving on, I would like to go over these last two Twitter questions in tandem. Um, so I'll go over Mason's first. So Mason says, Mason at the GD256 says, I've been told that this run is based in Greek mythology. What is your favorite portrayal of Greek myth in modern fiction? I admit I'm not as well versed in Greek mythology as I would like to be, especially not portrayals today. But I think Jacob would be able to speak on
yeah.
that more.
It may be nostalgia talking, but Rick Riordan's Percy Jackson and Heroes of Olympus um, is a really good primer if you want to learn about like Greek mythology as well as retelling Greek stories in the modern times. I've also heard the work of Madeline Miller is supposed to be really good for actually reinterpreting a lot of epic poems, but I have not actually read any of her work. I've been meaning to. It's on the list. It's just I read way too much. Um, but I think honestly this also stands with understanding of sort of how Greek mythology works, how sort of Greek gods can be portrayed, as well as genuinely trying to reference a lot of like historical things, and then filling in the gaps where the historical record just isn't there. There's something in particular that is used as the cover of this volume in the 2016 reprint, which I don't love that it was this cover that was chosen because I
Yeah,
think
there are definitely better covers to choose, but I don't hate it.
I don't hate it, but again, an interesting source for who the character that's terrorizing Diana on the cover is supposed to be. That I'm sure we'll get to
Yeah,
when we get
well, yeah,
there.
we get into spoilers, of course. Um, I'd like to flip over here to Andrew. Andrew doing art at Andrew doing art. Great to see Andrew back on Twitter. Go follow him. First question is Jacob as nitpicky towards this volume as he was about the mythology references in New Teen Titans Volume 2? Are you, Jacob?
Yes, I am. I'm still going to be scrutinizing this.
Would you say though this is at least a better portrayal
Oh, it
of
is better. It is more
mythology?
accurate. Again, it gets the dynamics better, and Perez just makes a lot more interesting decisions.
Hola,
Uh,
Paula.
yeah.
Hola, Paula.
Hola, Paula.
Never forget. And then these last two, Andrew and Mason both sent in different second questions, but pretty much say the same thing. So I want to talk about them together. Andrew's question is, how does this hold up to other stories featuring Wonder Woman slash Amazonians that you guys have read on the podcast so far? And Mason says, on Wonder Woman, what is the main defining feature that differs this run from other Wonder Woman stories?
So I don't know about Masons because I obviously haven't read any other Wonder Woman stories, but characterization is just better.
Mm.
The most exposure we've really had to Wonder Woman as a character at this point in the podcast is through Jeff Johns' Justice League,
Hmm.
which
And I
is
and I would say the key, the defining characteristic here that differentiates Wonder Woman from I think a lot of other portrayals in general is just how Perez writes her as very compassionate.
he
That
writes
that
her
is,
as a human,
yeah,
while
that's
say
very much on
Johns has
display here.
Johns has this problem, and I don't hate Johns' portrayal, but I just prefer this one, where
Hmm.
Johns really plays up the outsider nature,
Hmm.
and that's not always to great effect.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
I get that.
because
I get that. And I mean, like, like we all love like hardcore warrior Wonder Woman. I'm looking forward to the video game, just as much as the next guy, because it's gonna be fucking sick and bloody and whatever, and that's gonna be awesome. But like, I love this. I really, really love this because it's it's a very down to earth version of Diana. I was just
I'd
telling
also
Jake,
argue that this portrayal you can do as a hardcore warrior too. Like Perez does not shy away from that.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
just more complexities, and there's more facets to the character.
yeah, yeah. Um, I forgot what I was gonna say. Fuck me. Whatever. Moving on. Yeah, so I guess that about does it for our Twitter questions then. And I think that about does it for our non-spoiler section, doesn't it?
Yes.
Cool.
Before we move in, I will say, if you haven't already, honestly, this book you can get. It's still in print. Go get it. Like it's two story arcs. The first being an origin story. Well, actually, technically both are origin stories. They build off each other really well, and
Hmm.
they almost tell a nice complete package.
Hmm.
Um,
I would say like you don't get into like proper like regular Wonder Woman stories until volume two.
yes,
Pretty much all 14 issues of this volume is set up for like where the rest of the run is going. But
but
it's
it's not
but it's very well done setup. Yeah, like it's yeah, I
you're
fuck with it.
satisfied by the end.
Hmm.
My one warning is that there's some stuff that happens in issue 13-14 that has aged very poorly.
But
Um,
also, I guess, in a way, is very in the vein of Greek mythology and very
Sadly, it is.
yeah.
Um,
So I mean, hey, never let it be said Perez didn't do his homework. Um,
as well as it's as a comic from immediately after Crisis, it's a bit wordy.
yeah, definitely.
But never so much as it doesn't feel like the words don't need to be there. Like it's a very nice balance of
Hmm.
a, a lot of dialogue, but also not just saying, "Here's what I'm doing," like a certain Roger Stern has a tendency to do.
But yeah, definitely. But I guess that about does it for non-spoilers. Let's move into our spoiler section, jumping right in with issue number one with a fucking gorgeous cover. Not just a cover, but it spreads into these two
It's
pages.
a
Um,
full wraparound,
and
and
it's gorgeous. Like, oh, I love it. It's so good.
and we
Really just shows off like just how good Perez's art is.
it's again. This should have been the cover of the book. I don't know
Yeah. I
why.
think there is a an omnibus. I think it's split into two omnis. Where this is the cover, at least a
I
volume.
think it's three omnis, and
Is
they're
it three
like
omnis?
yeah, and they're reprinting the first one.
I
So
mean, you're really better off just getting the six volume version. You're gonna be spending way less.
yeah.
So,
Uh, but we open issue one shouldn't work. Let's be honest. Like
oh yeah, there's no Wonder Woman.
there's
She's not even in it. It's a 1.5 length issue, so about 30 odd pages, and Wonder Woman shows up at the very end, and that's about it.
yeah, but we still have to talk about it fairly in depth because a lot of this is important.
Yeah,
We
and it isn't just like Perez waxing lyrical about Greek mythology because he now loves Greek mythology. I mean, a fair bit of it is that, yeah. But no, it's really interesting too. I especially like this opening sequence where it shows um the approach here to a theme that Perez is going to play around with a lot, and that is just the nature between man and woman in humanity, and of course between the gods and all that. Um,
yes. Uh,
So I like it.
so, and we start with this one. He's immediately making a statement about men as being violent, um,
Hmm.
and essentially raging. All done in 2 pages, all set in prehistory with two cave people.
Hmm.
Um, and it's all building up this thing of men doing something to make people scream before we transition to Mount Olympus. Uh,
Hmm.
First, I love the sort of the title page.
Hmm.
Um,
Oh yeah, it's nice.
there's
Very.
there's something it beckons back to this sort of old fashioned thing with the DC Comics proudly presents Wonder Woman, uh, created by William Moulton Marston, um, and we have basically a very long scene on Mount Olympus, starting to talk about Ares, the god of war, who
Hmm.
is essentially our villain
Yeah,
for
yeah.
this first, really just this first arc.
Hmm.
Um,
But he does. There are some farther reaching consequences of his influence later in the volume.
yes. Um,
Um, but yeah, so he's ranting and raving as Ares does about how God, what is he even talking about here?
he
um
just wants to whip man up into a frenzy and
mhm,
create war. And uh, basically, it's this whole idea of sort of how are the gods going to create man?
mhm,
Um, this does take its roots from a myth. Uh, there's some liberties taken, but it is mythic. Ares representing a side on this rate. They wants to create this warrior race of men who are manly and to destroy. Um, whereas other Olympians see this race as potentially female, as gentler, as well
mhm.
as more intelligent,
Yeah,
uh, which I think is
Athena and Hera being
yes.
the leading forces here. And I like how the
Athena being very important and very much Perez understanding how Athena was worshipped as a goddess. She was also generally worshipped as a war goddess, but more in the terms of strategy, whereas Ares was more bloodshed and destruction.
mhm,
And that really informs these two schisms.
mhm.
Uh, and
But
it's generally the goddesses who decide eventually, here's here's how we're going to make this race.
mhm.
Um,
And the meeting pretty much ends with Ares rage quitting, and I love how this is done. He gets like this black and pink aura around him, and he flies out of there with the big like ha 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 letters just like in bold above him as he flies out of there. It's just really funny looking to me.
it is.
But he leaves, and once again, Hera, Athena, and their fellow women goddesses are contemplating how to make this race. They go into this. Let's see.
They
They go.
descend into the underworld.
Yes.
They descend into Hades, um, including. Um, and what's interesting is again they is Perez includes Aphrodite as part of this goddesses, of course, and very much explicitly calls out the fact that Ares and Aphrodite are a thing. They are a couple, which I think is very very interesting. It's very interesting because Perez is clearly playing around with just the dynamics of the different gods, and he's spending a lot of this issue to do it, which is again he really wants to establish, here's how all of this happens. Here's how it came to be. Um, so they cross the river Styx, paying the ferryman Charon, and they come essentially to this idea where souls are reborn. Um, and this is where they come and bring to life their new race.
Yes, and
Um,
they through this they create the Amazons. These souls fall into this lake. They emerge as fully formed humans. Specifically, they're all women, and they are the Amazons, and they are given their mission by these goddesses. They are the chosen race, born to lead humanity in the ways of virtue, the way of Gaia. Through you, all men shall know us better and worship us always. and that is just sort of their mission statement. So they choose Hippolyta as their queen for the Amazons. I believe it's what, Antiope or Antiope?
Antiope.
Oh, fuck off! Come on.
You forget you have someone who was raised on the Percy Jackson books.
Fucking whatever. Fine. Antiope or Antiope?
Antiope.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. I at
Greek
least
Greek is
got
one of
the
those things where
Ethiopia
like
right.
all the vowels are pronounced basically, because
But,
it's not English.
but yeah.
Uh,
Flash forward maybe a year later, and um, I
uh,
I don't want to say I don't think Perez is particularly for lack of a better term horny throughout this.
no, this is actually a retelling of one of the labors of Heracles. Um, one of the 12 labors of
I'm so
Heracles.
glad you're going to be the first to pronounce most of these names because I've had completely different pronunciations in my head for all of these.
Um, so, so the labors of Heracles. Heracles, son of Zeus, very important Greek hero, Romanized to Hercules. That's where that's where modern society generally likes to name him. Is driven mad by Hera and kills his wife and children. And in penance, uh, uh, King Eurystheus basically sets him 12 labors that he has to do. Slaying the Hydra, uh, uh, capturing or slaying the Nemean lion, um, capturing Cerberus from the underworld. This one is specifically attempting to steal Hippolyta's girdle. Hippolyta being, an actual, obviously, an actual character out of Greek mythology. And where we meet this is in the middle of the labor where he has wooed not only Hippolyta but also um, I think another Amazon. Is this supposed?
They
Uh,
say who it is. I can't find it for some reason.
yeah, because it's not
Mm,
Hippolyta.
no,
Uh,
no, no, not yet at least.
and
Um, I can't find where it says it.
uh,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know who this is. I know they say it, but I cannot remember who.
uh, yeah.
Weird.
Uh, um, Basically, he is essentially tricked to go into a rage,
Hmm.
basically by a daughter of Ares.
Hmm.
Um, um, it's probably meant to be Eris, goddess of discord. Um, I believe is the daughter of Ares. Uh,
But
uh,
yeah, so she sends Heracles into a rage, and he decides to basically show the Amazons that he is, he is a man, and
he's a big, strong man.
yes,
Um,
and that is Heracles' entire goal throughout this entire book. Every time you see him, but yeah, so she's been working for Ares. So Heracles goes out and meets with Hippolyta, or is it? Yeah, it is Hippolyta already. Yep.
it is about
So
he goes to essentially attack the
yeah,
Amazons.
to assert his dominance,
Uh,
and he challenges her to a fight. Hippolyta, that is. They get into a fight. He wails a tree at her. She's having none of that, of course. And
and the whole idea is Perez is just trying to show this brute power as almost as stupid. It
yeah,
is.
yeah, and it's shown immediately because he loses the fight. Um, she bests him. She has a sword to his throat, and he says, by Zeus, girl, Heracles is impressed. Men lay back. The Amazons are worthy allies indeed. So what he does is Heracles gets his men, and they sort of I guess break bread with the other Amazons. They have a night to celebrate until inside Heracles' tent he's alone with Hippolyta, and he drugs her and takes her for himself and locks her up in this dungeon. Because again, he believes he is better. And of
Uh,
course, this being all Ares' plan, Ares is planning to incite war between them.
um, and it is essentially recounting a myth. Uh, and what's interesting is that Hippolyta prays. um, praised for forgiveness, praised to be let free, and
and Gaia comes before her then, right? Yeah,
yes,
or no, that's Athena. Sorry,
it's a
Athena comes before her, and and says, you betrayed only yourself. Examine yourself, Hippolyta. Examine your race. Once the Amazons dreamed of leading mankind, but you chose to withdraw from humanity to ignore the purpose for which you were created, and you grew bitter and corrupt. Have you forgotten the source of your power? Have you forgotten the example you were to set? Um, so Athena comes in with a very, Greek mythology, godlike. Uh, I don't know if this is accurate to how the mythology actually goes, but she says, like, you betrayed the Amazons, by forgetting the Amazons' values and what we set you out to do.
yeah. It's
Um,
at this point where we're going more into why is there no actual no real archaeological evidence for Amazons existing necessarily. So they need to retreat. Um, and so we can actually move into Wonder Woman as we're setting up how Wonder Woman can come to be as a character.
mhm.
Uh,
So Hippolyta breaks free. War does indeed break out between Heracles' men and the Amazons. Um,
all around this beautiful panel of just a sword raised in the air. Uh,
which, like, I don't know if the implication is that it's Ares, but I kind of love that idea that it's Ares raising his sword in the middle of it
well,
all, despite not actually being part of the battle.
well, actually, it's supposed to be Hippolyta because of the
Is it?
chain.
Oh, that's right. I didn't even notice that. Sorry.
Yeah,
You're right.
it's again, George Perez has graduated his art uh so well.
I mean, of course, that's not
So
to say any of the Titan stuff we covered was bad or anything,
no,
but
it's
just like
just
it's so much more refined here.
ah, and I'm sure the Titan stuff will only get better as time goes on because
Yeah, oh,
Perez stays
definitely.
with that for a long time.
Very long
Uh
time. And then leaves and comes back. So,
so
yeah.
yes. And essentially uh instead instead of falling to Ares, um there is a schism uh, between uh, between Hippolyta and Antiope, um, uh, and they fade, and the Amazons are essentially led by the goddesses to their own island. Um,
They're led by Poseidon. Poseidon makes a path for them through the water. Um it's what is it? How long do they travel there for? It's a couple
uh,
days at least. Like they travel through that water.
yeah,
Um
the days bring fatigue, the nights are bitter cold, and at every turn, the followers of Hippolyta fear that Poseidon's tunnel will suddenly falter and come thundering down around them. Yet throughout their 3 months' journey,
that's it. Oh
the
my God.
watery pathway holds, and as their feet touch the soil of Paradise Island, each Amazon knows the gift of immortality. Thereby, they are rejuvenated, and they set themselves heart and soul to work. Uh,
So they're on Paradise Island now. It will come to be known as Themyscira. They build this beautiful island, and Perez really just does show how beautiful it is. Um,
and this is where you see what I'm talking about, just all these soft colors, the
mhm.
pastels,
Oh,
uh,
definitely.
and
Yeah.
it's all essentially a monument to the Greeks. Hippolyta is essentially queen of the Amazons, and
Okay, you're gonna have to help me with this next name. Mena. I'm not gonna be.
uh,
I'm not even gonna try. Say it.
it's probably Menelope.
Okay, sure. Menelope. Fucking hate these things. Anyway, so Menelope is their pretty much their fortune teller, I guess, right?
Yeah,
Um,
they're Oracle.
yeah,
Um,
and Hippolyta comes to them and uh Menelope, I think he said it just said,
yes.
says that like basically like this is what the gods want from you. Um, uh, no, I know that you and all original Amazons are reincarnations. All of us knew new life before the midwives plucked us from Gaia's womb, but only you, my queen, were pregnant at the time of your death. Now you hear the call of your unborn daughter. Um, so Hippolyta is tasked with going out on the outskirts of the island, making out of the soil of the earth and making out of clay this child that her past life was pregnant with. This child is, of course, Diana, the woman that will eventually come to be known as Wonder Woman. And
And Diana is blessed by basically all the goddesses who were in favor. of having the Amazons as female with
Hmm.
similar gifts, and it's a beautiful sequence.
Hmm.
But at this point, we should know we are 25 pages into this issue,
Yeah, and
and this is where
Diana
Diana
has only
shows
just
up.
shown up as an infant.
Um,
So,
it,
so we
Yet
flash
it
forward
works.
then. It does, it totally does. But we flash forward then. This is the first and only birth on Paradise Island. Diana is unique. She is brought up by the Amazon. She is trained like them, um, and eventually, um,
Eventually, our Oracle speaks of danger. Um, that there is power growing that Ares may use to consume the Earth itself, very much implying a lot of time has passed.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
we never know. We don't quite know how much time. Uh, for a while,
Hmm.
um, but we have this whole idea that a champion must be born, essentially to be an emissary to man's world.
Hmm.
Uh, and
And the
Diana, of
idea,
course,
yeah, so Diana's not allowed to because she is still in their eyes a child. And so all these other Amazons, they hold this competition where they're all meant to be dressed in this gold armor, and it's basically like an Olympics thing. Um, and so one warrior eventually wins this competition, and because they were all like disguised by their armor, it's revealed that Diana won it, and that she snuck her way into the competition. But because she won, they still have to give her uh, the armor to go out. She still has to be that emissary to man's world. Um, and so
uh,
she is given. Oh no, sorry, no, that's not what she's. Wait, is that what she's sent to do?
that is what she's going to be sent to do when the
Eventually,
time
but
comes,
yeah,
because the
but
whole
just
idea is that the prophecy is coming. Uh, I love this detail of somehow they have a gun on Paradise Island.
well, that
Uh,
is answered eventually. They give a
yes,
reason for that. Um,
um,
but yeah,
but
so they give Diana these bracelets that and they shoot this gun at the bracelets and she's able to deflect the bullets from it. Then she goes inside this chamber where she's given this armor, and it's the iconic Wonder Woman armor, and it looks brilliant, and it's the only look we get at it is on the final page of this issue, when you
uh,
see Diana in the full costume there.
yeah, and I think it's telling that while it took 30 pages to get to this point feels earned. Like
Hmm. Oh, definitely.
despite only being a character for about 5 pages, there's already a lot Perez is doing to build up Diana as struggling,
Hmm.
Diana as her own person, and she has her own wants and goals,
Yeah.
which I think is just really, 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 really important. Also, like if you want someone to get hooked on Wonder Woman, just give them this issue, and
Oh
it'll
yeah.
do it.
Yeah. But we move into issue 2 here, which has the wildest fucking cover.
Yes.
I love this thing. And yeah, we go into issue 2, and we meet Colonel Steve Trevor, who I always thought in the Perez one was drawn just way older than I always imagined Steve Trevor being.
Really?
I don't know. I always imagined Steve is like a younger guy, and he's drawn like
Maybe.
he's like in his early 40s here, right? You
I
know?
think part of it is because Perez doesn't really want to do the Diana Steve romance.
At least not for
Uh,
now. Yeah.
Not for now, which I actually quite like that.
I like the way it's
Um,
done here, but typically on most days I'd be like, yeah, it's Diana and Steve, you know, for me at least.
I don't know. But what's nice, we are starting on an Air Force base, and it is explicitly what would be the modern day,
Hmm.
which makes a big change from the classic Wonder Woman origin.
Hmm.
Um, again, being so entrenched in World War II.
Hmm.
Um, but we are at the heart of the Cold War,
Yeah.
um, which already is a perfect setting for a Wonder Woman story, especially if you're going to use Ares as a villain.
Hmm.
Um, and it just makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and there isn't that glorification of the American army. Um,
Hmm. Oh yeah, I
Steve,
mean like Trevor's like superior officer is an absolute ass, you know, and Steve
yes,
clearly doesn't like his job.
yeah.
Um,
Steve asks questions and is told, "Stow it, Trevor. No one cares what you think. Not anymore. You'll fly that Phantom's orders, and you'll do it with your mouth shut."
And he's
Uh,
basically sending Trevor on a suicide mission.
yes.
And says like you're
Uh,
to go out with this other pilot here. He meets up with this other pilot, Captain Slade, and they go out together. They're in this jet. They leave, um, and we go over to Paradise Island, where we see Wonder Woman in this definitely more regal looking outfit. And I don't know. I always like the more like armored Diana. It's cool looking. I like the
it's
way
nice.
Perez draws it.
It's very much meant to be like battle armor.
Well, yeah,
Um,
it's just an extension of the regular costume.
yes, and
Mhm.
I love it. I also love just the way this title. Again, I love the way the title page is set up as we're drawing back from the statue, um, and Diana is musing about her fears while a thunderstorm rages.
Mhm.
Uh, and basically, Diana and a bunch of Amazons are gathering because uh, one, the gods are going to call another weapon down to Diana. Hephaestus is forging what is going to be the lasso of truth. Um, and I love this sequence. It's using a Deus Ex Machina, but with actual gods.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. Like
like
so it does. I mean, it is like very convenient, but like it's literally like it's because they're gods. Just a cool little sequence. So yeah, so they forge the lasso of truth. They send it down to Diana. I like this little bit where they shoot it through like a bow and arrow down
yes.
to Diana. So
And Hermes comes
she takes.
down with a message
Mhm.
uh, as a guide, giving her a clue that I gave you the power of flight when you were born. Now I take you to a place where eagles cannot soar, and she's taken away as Colonel Steve Trevor. Um, his plane is being struck by lightning and
Mhm.
is going to crash.
Yeah.
Um,
Meanwhile, where Hermes has taken Diana is I don't even know her.
Uh, this is this is essentially Ares's domain.
Mm.
Uh, this is Aerophagus, is what it's called.
This is a real thing in Greek
I
mythology, or
don't think so.
interesting?
I think this is one of those things that like all the gods live on Olympus except for Hades, who's in the underworld. Um, so I think this might just be Perez
Gi-
pulling from
giving,
ideas.
yeah, and also just like giving our villain an evil lair to sulk in,
Yes.
rather
Well,
than being among the rest of the
there's
gods.
gotta be an evil layer.
Exactly, you have to. So yeah, so they go here, and
Uh,
we work our way through here. Who's this one of the Green Hood here? I forget.
uh, this, uh, this is one of Ares's daughters. I'm not entirely sure which one,
Hmm.
um, because gods have a lot of children,
Yeah,
um,
it's kind of what they do.
and she gives Diana a talisman that she wears that'll be the key to opening Ares' secrets. As Diana is called back to Themyscira, where the plane is crashing.
And Captain Slade has turned into this demon thing, presumably working for Ares, because who isn't working for Ares? Um, and the plane crashes, and Diana goes in to save it. She grabs onto this. Oh yes, the plane drops a missile, and Diana grabs the missile with the lasso of truth and swings it back into the air and sends it away. Um, and then the plane crashes into the water. Diana goes in the water and saves Steve and takes him to the surface of Paradise Island.
and sees her first man. Also, the way the explosion in the sky, just the
Oh, it's
way it's
so
all
good.
drawn.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Meanwhile, we go back to the airbase where
You sent me a picture when you first read this
yeah
page. Because
uh,
you were like, I didn't expect like what Perez to do like any kind of gore or anything.
because
But
we go to Gore. Basically, the general on the airbase wants uh, wants to see the commander, who is
Kohler, he is the one that sent Steve out.
Steve out to
Um
die. Uh,
and Kohler has been evaporated pretty much.
he is turned
Um
into a skeleton.
yes, and it's a really gruesomely drawn image actually. I like it. It's
Yet
cool.
there's no blood.
Yeah, no, it's very It's
it's
PG-13 gore.
but it's effective. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, it might be one of my favorite panels in the entire book just because of how
Yeah.
effective
It's
it
cool. I
is.
also just love the way the officers' faces are drawn when they see it. Like it's so good. And also Etta Candy is here, so that's
Etta
nice.
Candy is here.
Yeah, we meet Etta
Um,
Candy.
now a lieutenant in
Yes.
in the Air Force instead of just a secretary,
Mhm.
which is it's a fitting update.
Yeah.
And I like a lot of what Perez does with Etta throughout this.
Mhm.
Um,
But
uh,
yeah, we go back to Paradise Island. The Amazons are looking after Steve, and Steve is the very first man to ever step foot on Paradise Island.
uh,
Um,
and they're essentially going to nurse him back to health. Um, and basically, they all establish Ares is our enemy. Um, and Athena appears to impart more wisdom, and to say she is now prepared for your mission.
Her
It's
mission
like
now,
a
of course, being now to actually go to man's world.
and
Um,
take the and Hermes will guide her to man's world.
mhm.
The implication being, and she takes Steve uh, with her. Um,
Because Steve belongs back in man's
man's
world and
world.
he can't be on
Uh,
Paradise Island. Um, we also get the first. It's special here, but it's the first of many emotional goodbye scenes from Themyscira.
yeah, this happens a
It happens a
lot.
few. It happens a few times, and
But yes,
I don't know.
Hippolyta is
Yeah,
sad that she has to say goodbye to her daughter.
but
Um,
don't worry, she'll be back in a few issues. But but yeah, so Hermes guides Diana and Steve over to Man's World. Meanwhile, the officers on the Air Force base are trying to figure out what happened, and they are being watched by Ares' sons, Deimos and Phobos, I believe. Is that
Phobos and Deimos.
Fuck you! Oh my god, I fucking I fucking hate you. I
It's
fucking hate
panic and
you
fear.
so Jacob, no. I fucking despise you.
Joey, you've listened to Doctor Who audio dramas with these names.
No, but I swear they pronounced it Phobos.
It's Phobos
Okay,
because
no. But in the
phobia.
Doctor Who audio drama, they pronounced it Phobos.
Yeah, that one's wrong.
Okay, well, you say it as if I should know because I listened to Doctor Who shit. No, that's how they pronounced it in the Doctor Who shit. So
Uh,
explain that shit.
yes,
Um,
but these are the most famous sons of Ares. They're the ones that Mars's moons are named after. Also, the ones that we have no real depiction of. Demos in particular, the whole snake-like design is taken from a monument to the Battle of Thermopylae, which is the famous battle that 300 is technically based off of, even though it screws things up a
I
lot.
feel like this episode and the next one is going to chronicle my ever growing hatred of you.
Yeah, yes, it will.
Watch this space. We
Watch
go into
this.
what we go into Wonder Woman number 3, Deadly Arrival, and we arrive in Boston. It's just I like it. It's Boston.
Boston, Massachusetts. You
Yeah.
would think New York, right? Like, you would think we would be going to like New York or DC or like the capital, but no,
Yeah.
we're in Boston,
And I
Massachusetts.
love the way these credits are done. George Perez, plotter and artist, Bruce D. Patterson, inker, John Costanza, letterer, Tatiana Wood, colorist, and Karen Berger, editor. Warmly welcome Len Wein, scripter. It's his
Scripter.
first one on this on the run, and he's great. Like I think you immediately see a different style of dialogue here. Um,
It's snappier. It also
yeah,
makes
it's
it feel
very
more
sharp,
modern,
very sharp.
especially since now we are out of the sort of mythic space of Paradise Island.
So he is very much the right scripter to come in and take on this part of the story. And then he'll do it for the rest of the volume. So there's
Yes,
that.
and I
Yeah.
imagine he stays for most of the run.
You know what happens a lot actually in volume 2 is Perez writes some of the scripts himself.
Oh, so Perez
Yeah.
just keeps working and
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Actually, there's a fun story. We'll talk about it more when we get to volume 2. And apparently, on the first issue that Perez did the full script for and art, he was sent back the whole script by the editor and was like, "Just redo the first 10 pages, please." So apparently, he was very clearly overworking himself, and it was apparent in the first draft of the script. So
Good to good to know that there's an editor like Karen Berger who's going to say no, no,
yeah, yeah,
George, you need to polish this.
yeah,
Um,
definitely. So
but
we go in. Yeah, Hermes and Diana arrive here.
we
And
are
we
taking
have
in the
taken
wonders of man's world,
Mhm.
essentially.
We have taken Steve to the hospital. Etta Candy and all these other Air Force officers are looking after him, and we still have the talisman. And then we go over to across the campus from where Steve is being held. Um, we go into the library of the campus, and we meet one Julia, I believe Capitelis. I believe that's how
Yeah,
you say it.
Capitalis, I think,
Capitelis.
who is
Um,
the best character,
I
hands
I I
down.
just knew you'd fall in love with this character. I don't know what it
Like,
was, but I was rereading this book and I was like, Jacob's gonna love this girl. I love
it's
it.
like
So
she's listen. I love an academic character who's kind of a little bit insane.
mhm.
Like,
Yeah,
as
she's great. I love her.
she is every good professor I've had,
Nice.
like rolled into one. Um, she's witty, she's funny. The first thing she does is berate an assistant for
Mhm.
complaining about having to um, sneak in to uh, like I think a museum or a library to get some books.
Mhm.
Um,
And then as she's like yelling at him, she reaches for a book and falls off this big ladder, and Wonder Woman happens to be there, and Diana goes in to catch her, and I like that as a first meeting. It's just
yes,
it very much exemplifies their two characters, doesn't it?
yes, and we have Diana speaking a form of ancient Greek.
Yes, which I love this little touch. It's a great idea. Just Diana doesn't know the English language.
English.
She only knows ancient Greek. It
Why
is a
would she know
it is a
English?
little bit convenient that Julia also knows Greek. So
I mean, she's set up explicitly as a
I
Greek
get it, but I
professor,
just
so I can forgive it.
I get it, yeah, but it's just like, oh, well, what are the odds? Let's see. I'm a little rusty, and here I am speaking perfect Greek, you know?
Not even perfect Greek, perfect ancient Greek,
Yeah,
which is different from modern Greek. Like depending on the dialect, may not even use the same alphabet.
mhm.
So that's
It's a little convenient.
it's a convenient, but I
But
love it.
uh but yeah, so Diana pulls out the talisman and shows it to Julia. She touches it. It shows her things that probably aren't meant to be shown
To
to
mere
mortals
mortals.
touching the talisman. But as she comes back to as she sees Diana again, um and I don't know, I really like this introduction scene between the two of them. It's very nice.
Yeah. She finally realizes, okay, you're speaking ancient Greek, asks her name, and they become friends. And she's essentially going to take her home to help her out.
Hmm.
Um, Meanwhile, we do a very nice transition to Phobos and Deimos, who are essentially plotting, right? They're plotting. They are going to try to attack her. Deimos has his children ready to strike.
Hmm.
Ready to
Which
cause.
I found it really funny when I was reading this. They repeat this exact half page here and the half page that follows later, just colored differently.
That sounds about right.
I don't know if you noticed that at all. Like it's just a weird moment. Oh yeah, and they also changed the people standing in the crowd to Russians, I believe.
Well, that's kind of intentional because the whole idea is Demos
Yeah,
being.
but it's so weird. Like you could tell the art is just repeated and the dialogue is the exact same. It's just I don't know. I think it's funny, but
It's funny.
yeah.
Um, Again,
Anyways, yeah. So Julia is
I do
taking.
like that we're getting this sort of this Cold War, both sides against each other, just ready to
Mhm.
just ready to be set off.
It's one of those reasons why I think like Ares, despite probably being, it's weird because Cheetah's technically the main antagonist for Wonder Woman, but Ares is I think is more well known today. But it's so hard to use Ares, I think, actually, like in the right setting, you know.
Yes.
Like here we use him in the Cold War, makes sense. In the 2017 film, they use him as the during World War II or World War One. Like it makes sense. I like
The
it.
2009 animated film
Yeah, it's all
uses
like
him.
yeah,
And directly adapts this first arc, kind of, sort of, a little bit, not entirely, but
parts of it.
it mostly. They cut out Julia, and that's a shame.
Any gripes I have with that film are solved by the fact that Alfred Molina plays Ares, so
Yes.
I'll take
Uh,
it. But yeah, so Julia is taking Diana to her home. Steve starts to wake up and freaks out.
because he knows that he's a marked man and he can't trust his superiors.
Mhm.
Uh, and he wakes up uh with a general there going to poison him with a
Mhm.
lethal injection.
Mhm.
Um,
So
so
he wakes
he
up. He punches them out. Begins his escape from the hospital. Um,
he
and
is
yeah,
sh- he is shot.
that's right. He is shot. I forgot about that. He is shot.
Uh, no,
Um,
wait, no. Yeah, he is shot at. Then this like this uh, uh, the man looking.
sorry. No, this is someone else trying
Yeah,
to. Yeah,
the
that's right.
sergeant who was sort of on patrol
Someone who
duty.
is conveniently kind of drawn like Steve.
Yeah, it's the sergeant in who's in the hallway is just shot twice in the back.
Mhm.
Um, basically, so they can continue the narrative that Steve Trevor is a dangerous man and
Mhm.
killed the man he was sent on a mission with, and now killed a sergeant in the hospital, escaping from the hospital.
Mhm.
Uh,
But meanwhile, we go to the home of Julia and we meet her daughter, Vanessa.
Vanessa, who is, it's. I'm glad Perez at this point would have had like 6 years of New Teen Titans under his belt
Mhm.
because he knows how to write a teenager and not make it annoying.
Yeah, she's a really fun character, actually. I like her. I think you'll especially like some of the things they do with her, like early volume two. But yeah, moving on, we get a nice little scene with Edda here, where she's worried about Steve, and Steve comes to her house to sort of seek refuge.
Uh,
Meanwhile, we get the exact same. This one's Phobos, right? Or no, this
uh,
one's Demos. I fuck. Which is which? God damn it!
no, they're both Demos. They're the same.
Wait, what? No, I know that. I'm just saying like Phobos is the purple one, right?
Yeah, Phobos is the purple one. The green
Got
one's Demos.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Okay, Demos is same scene, just talking to Russians, and he's gathering his forces. Um, but yeah, Julia introduces Vanessa to Diana. Vanessa does not take kindly to her to begin with, because Julia is clearly fascinated with someone who isn't her, which is
Well, just some random woman off the street, and
who doesn't even speak English, in the words of Vanessa. Um, so yeah, just it's a very, I think, realistic bit of friction there. I like that.
yeah, and now Vanessa feels really uncomfortable bringing over, uh, you know, and trying to invite over a friend to help study for an algebra test. And just some genuinely compassionate little scenes. Just
Hmm.
the way Perez plays it, like it's this small detail, but it
Hmm.
really works.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. But then we go over to Julia and Diana. Diana is starting to learn English. She's picking up on these things from books, and
very quickly because she has the power of a goddess of knowledge on her side. Um,
mhm,
that's how I'm rationalizing it of her learning English really quickly. Um,
mhm. And so yeah, so then as what is it? Vanessa is attacked downstairs. Julia and Diana rush down to help her, and we meet up with Decay. Is Decay a thing from Greek mythology,
um,
or is this just a comic book character?
she might be. There probably was some sort of like religious figure for Decay. I don't think Perez is really drawing on that completely, as
Mhm.
far as I
I mean,
know.
she's very much drawn like just a comic book villain, and I love the
Yeah,
design. Like it's cool. It's a really cool idea for a
it's
character.
a great idea for Decay. Like, and you see, like in the background, Vanessa has just aged,
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
it's
yeah. She's slowly
terrifying.
aging Vanessa, and or I guess rapidly aging Vanessa, and then brings the house crumbling down on them, and that's where the issue ends. We go into Wonder Woman #4. We pick up exactly where we leave off. The house is still crumbling.
I love the title of this
Crashes
issue:
down.
"A Long Day's Journey into Fright."
Yeah, it's very Terrence Dicks, isn't it?
Yes, I mean a lot of these are very Terrence Dicks
Yeah.
titles.
Just those
Uh,
kind of, oh, what's the famous one that's repeated everywhere?
Escape to Danger.
Escape to Danger. That's it. Yeah. I love it. But yeah, so yeah,
And
House is
even at this
crumbling
point, you
down.
can really see that the monologue has become Len Wayne.
Yeah. Like
Uh,
there's first off, there's just way less of it. Um, and also it's definitely just written differently. I like it.
yeah.
But yeah,
Uh,
so Diana, Julia, and Vanessa all escape the house before it comes
as it
crashing down.
falls apart around them, um, Decay steals Diana's tiara. Um, and what's nice is the neighbors have noticed.
You never get that, do you?
You really don't. Everybody's coming outside in fear. Um, really, it kind of helps play up with sort of the nuclear threat that's kind of the undercurrent of this first arc. Because
Mm-hmm.
remember, we're building up to basically trying to do a nuclear annihilation of the world. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that is what Ares' plan ultimately is. Uh, but Diana springs into action. Um, is going to try to find a cure for
Mm-hmm.
Vanessa.
Somebody
Um,
takes Vanessa, to be looked after by a hospital, presumably. Diana goes out to I don't know, just goes. Meanwhile, the
uh,
gods are watching the conflict from above.
uh,
Hermes is here, and um, Apollo, and who else? I
uh,
don't. Athena's here.
yes. I love sort of the almost MC Escher esque of like perspective on some of the scenes on Olympus. Um, yeah.
Hmm.
Also, Aphrodite's here. I find Perez's portrayal of Aphrodite interesting because goddess of love, that can become a very complex portrayal depending on who's writing it. Uh, and Perez writes her with some regret,
Hmm.
um,
He
which is
doesn't use
really
her much here, though. Throughout this whole thing, he
no,
doesn't use much, but it's nice to have her here.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
Um,
So meanwhile,
Meanwhile,
Edda is doing some detective work.
espionage.
Yeah, she sneaks into this filing cabinet, gets a file titled Ares with a big stamp that says top secret on it. I always love that in fiction when they stamp a giant top secret
Well,
thing
here's the
on
funny
a
thing.
file.
That's a thing that the government actually does.
Are you fucking serious?
Did you not see like the images of the stuff that they got from Trump's the FBI got from Trump's that Trump took from the White House?
I did not take a look at
It
those.
had
No.
like it had this like confidential
That's
just
fucking
stamped on it.
crazy. That's
Yeah,
so fucking crazy.
that's what
How
it
do I hide these secret files? Come on.
yeah, it's the idea is that's not trying to keep it secret. It's you do not have authority to read this. We are trying to communicate that so
So
that
fucking
you.
stupid.
Yeah, it's a thing. I always find it funny because it's like you think that would just be made up for like movies and shit. It's
Mhm.
not.
No. Mm-mm. But
Um,
yeah, so Edda leaves, sees that the destruction is being reported on the news,
they
and
call it a rot riot,
and
which I
it's
love.
yeah, fun little term. But
Uh,
oh, sorry.
and we see decay basically spreading. News correspondence. That a forest is decaying. A parking garage has collapsed,
Hmm.
killing two people.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just all this decay. And then the next story they can go to is in other news tonight. The search goes on for accused killer Colonel Stephen Trevor. Uh, the controversial Colonel Trevor is being sought in connection with the disappearance of an Air Force fighter jet, and he is the primary suspect in the murders of several military personnel. Um, Again, just building up that tension that this is going to bubble,
Hmm.
and Perez is really doing a good job of making the plot lines run in parallel.
Hmm.
Like we have two separate plot lines, and none of these characters have met yet. Like, Steve hasn't really met Diana outside
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
very early on, but they haven't really had a whole lot of time to interact. And it's something that lesser writers don't make as interesting. But with Perez and Wayne especially, you're just hooked.
Yeah.
Uh, uh,
Meanwhile, just Decay is just causing more destruction. She topples the statue, and Diana comes in to stop it from falling on these civilians. She throws the statue back up at Decay. We get a nice little almost fight here. They mostly monologue towards each other, and then the fight actually
while
begins.
while the news is watching,
Mhm.
and it's this
I
whole
like this little
idea.
touch here that as Diana fights Decay, like you could see these little marked differences in how Diana is drawn, as if Decay's power is actually
Yeah,
affecting her.
it's affecting her.
Hmm.
Um, it's also a lot again. A lot of the action is implied action, which I love,
Yeah.
especially considering it's against a character who, if you touch them, you're going to start decaying. Um, and then she uses the lasso for the first time, and it um, drives her into the ground.
Hmm.
She declaims, "No, it cannot end like this. I am the daughter of the Gorgon, and I will be free." Um, and she can't escape, and
She blows up.
blows up because
She
the
blows
lasso
up.
has the lasso has that power. Um,
apparently.
I think the idea is that the truth smites evil,
Yeah.
um, and she was truly evil. Uh, so Diana, picks up her tiara, has a moment to think, and then is bombarded with reporters. And this is something that'll be picked up on later on in sort of the second arc really.
Hmm.
But I love it. Like I
Yeah.
was just like, what's going on? It's like, right, I have to focus on Ares. I have to get back to Julia. I have to understand this.
Hmm.
Um,
Meanwhile, Phobos and Deimos are arguing amongst themselves, so much so that Deimos just sends Phobos off a cliff.
the implication is down into Hades.
Mhm.
Um, is the implication. Obviously, I don't think you can kill a god,
Yeah.
but Deimos is now going to have his plans in action. Uh,
Mhm.
and here's where we actually get. I like the way Perez makes the origin of like calling her Wonder Woman.
Mhm.
Um, it's like it's all the media basically trying to like we need to describe this mysterious woman. We
Mhm.
can't. It's like Bird Woman is out. There's already a Hawk Woman. So let's think about the double W. I mean, Superman has an S on his chest for identification. So why not a double W for her? Uh, and that's how they come up with Wonder Woman.
Yeah,
Uh,
and the previous escapade with Decay is being reported on, and Wonder Woman is already starting to become known as like a hero to everybody.
uh, and
Meanwhile, in this sort of like isolated home out in the middle of nowhere, Etta and Steve are hiding out together, and
uh,
somebody is watching them.
somebody's well after Steve recognizes Diana on
Hmm.
television.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's someone from the U.S. government watching them. So meanwhile, at the hospital, Vanessa is being taken care of.
Hmm.
Um, uh, they're basically told, uh, uh, you know, the idea is they don't know if they can make Vanessa recover. Meanwhile, there's also just a bunch of reporters coming to try to interview her, but Diana comes back. Um, uh, and they sort of have not quite an argument, but it's this nice back and forth of trying to figure out what can they do uh, to try and save Vanessa, who is still in the hospital. So they go back to their home, um, and they do some research
Yeah.
essentially.
They sort of try to figure out what the talisman is all about when eventually they see someone hiding outside. So Diana goes outside to confront this person, and it is Steve Trevor. They see each other again. Obviously, they can't communicate or anything. Well, actually, Diana can actually. She knows like enough English at this point that she can like make like choppy sentences.
Says where you get weapon of flashing thunder. Which I love. It's like, yeah, why would you have the word gun in your lexicon?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you have never really encountered a gun.
Hmm.
Um,
But yeah, yeah. So they meet for the first time, and this agent that was watching Stephen Etta has presumably attacked Etta, and
uh,
she's laying unconscious by the car, and that is where we end the issue.
Also, can we just say Julia comes out with a shotgun?
Yeah, like a fucking queen. Like I love it. It's
It's a
great.
shame. Apparently, this character after like appeared, but like after the New 52, she's just disappeared.
Yeah, pretty much.
Can we
It's
bring her back? DC, bring back Julia. She's great.
she is great. We love her. But anyway,
Uh,
we move into issue 5, which is the cover of the collection here. Again, just interesting cover to choose. I don't quite get it, but whatever.
is it because of the whole bondage thing with Wonder Woman's creator?
Maybe. I doubt
Because
it, but
because
maybe.
he was into bondage.
Well, good for him.
But yeah, uh, we open back on Paradise Island, where the Amazons are sensing something is wrong. Um, while on Olympus, uh, the whole idea is their oracle can no longer sense the future. Um, and while on Olympus, Apollo, who is responsible for prophecy in the Greek pantheon, is essentially an accursed sleep. Which again, beautiful, beautiful imagery here. Um, this whole idea of they're going to travel across the sticks to try to understand what's been going on.
Hmm.
At
We
least
see
all the
this.
goddesses are.
Yeah, we see this
Uh,
gorgeous like boat made of bone here. Like, just I love that. Is that what it is? I'm assuming it's made of bone. Yeah,
it's bone.
yeah, that's
Uh,
awesome. I love that.
like
It looks so cool. But
uh,
anyway, back on Man's World. I love that whenever we go back here, like it says Man's World at the top there. It's
yes.
nice.
Um,
Uh,
and we're finding out that hey, there's a peace summit for the Cold War is collapsing. In the Middle East, fighting is breaking out. In Nicaragua, unexpected rebel raids were responsible for heavy casualties. International terrorism also ran rampant today. And it's this cycle of violence slowly spreading, all done through a page. Um,
mhm. And then we catch up with this agent that was watching Etta and Steve last time. This is Michaelis, I think. Is that how you pronounce that?
Michaelis?
Yeah, I've never seen just the name Michael with an IS at the end. I think that's like, how would you pronounce that? That's weird.
Probably Michaelis.
That's what I was
Probably.
assuming, but it's
Um,
weird.
But it turns out he's actually a friend of Steve's. And now all our plot lines have come together.
Mhm.
Um, Diana shows her talisman. Etta Candy shows her espionage with, Project Ares, the
And then we
Ares
go into the title
Project.
page, which is gorgeous. This is the Ares Assault, and it's just this great thing of Demos ranting above this cliff top within the words the Ares Assault, and it looks so cool.
And beautiful colors of purple. You have sort of that Kirby crackle doing
Hmm.
the vortex thing.
Yeah,
And in the word assault, you just see lines of tanks and army men fighting up for war.
so
Um,
good. Um,
and that's what we're building to. We are building um,
Demos
very
is trying
intentionally.
to like start war within the Cold War, and just I love that. We see this on the next page too. Like it's it's the Americans and the Soviets, face to face with each other, or at least marching towards each other slowly. Um,
Intentionally copying the art from each side of the page, basically,
yeah. Oh, it looks so
uh,
nice.
all under this General Tolliver. Um, Meanwhile, basically back at the academic retreat, um, Julia is trying to figure out what the inscription on the talisman is. What does it translate to? Um, there's this image of a vulture on the talisman that works as a focal point, and they work it through. The implication being that they've been working all night, and someone has drawn it on a map of the world. Um, and it turns out there's this whole idea is that there's um, that it's actually a mirror image correlating to basically all the places that violence has been breaking out um, when viewed in a mirror.
Hmm.
Um, and I love how Diana's like, by Gaia's girdle, suddenly Ares' plan is clear to me. I love just that two panel with just the red background and everyone waking up in shock.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
uh,
Meanwhile, elsewhere it says, I love this sort of like half page here where we see like Ares' agent actively stopping anyone trying to like prevent the war.
uh,
Just a nice little sequence here.
and he's
Uh,
slowly working his way down to where the nuclear launches is going to happen.
mhm,
Um, they figured it out just in time, and it's like this whole idea. It's like right, this marks the bloodiest sites of the bloodiest battles of all time, um, as well as indicating sites of various nuclear bases or other suspected attack facilities.
mhm,
Um, and the Vulture as our focal point matches to a point in the U.S. where basically General Tolliver is going to launch some nuclear missiles. Uh, they have um, they have McAllis call in to General Hillary, who is sort of another general in the army, who is also just being informed that the nuclear missiles are being primed, and nobody's authorized this. What's going on?
Hmm.
And we see just in this red a salute. Someone who was clearly meant to be a guard just shot in a pool of his own blood, and the key being inserted into the basically into the launch sequence to start a launch sequence. Uh, because all he's got to do is press a button, and we're going to start World War III.
Hmm.
Um,
So Diana decides to go out there herself, to go find Ares. And of course, no one else. They're not going to let her go out there alone. So Michaelis, Trevor, Julia, and Etta all decide to go out with her.
as well as Michael McAllis, who has.
I said that already.
Did you? Well,
Yeah, I
he
said
also
Michaelis.
has an armory for himself, which is definitely an image.
Yeah. And they leave, and they use the talisman to enter the domain of Ares, and we are now face to face with Deimos. And we basically get what is the cover. Then Deimos uses like his snake beard thing to
Yes.
trap Diana.
What's interesting is that so the snake thing, we don't have any real source. It's just used as an image on that monument that I talked about earlier, which I think is really it's a really interesting extraction that Perez uses, just obviously trying to create some sort of characterization for a mythological figure who is mentioned a couple times in ancient poetry. Like he's mentioned in the Iliad and the Odyssey as being beside Ares when Ares goes into battle, but that's about it.
mm,
Um, which I find interesting. But yeah, the snake imagery is also nice and quite terrifying, honestly.
hmm.
Um, and Phobos um, essentially makes everyone who's with Diana face their greatest fears.
So like
Uh,
Etta sees these like boulders like crashing down on her.
to
Steve sees a giant spider. um,
Julia's
uh,
afraid of drowning. Um,
and Michaelis is face to face with a giant cat,
cat.
which I love. um,
Uh,
and these things aren't they aren't just like these things that they only see, like they're actual manifestations of these fears. So like Diana punches the giant cat, um, and the giant spider is still attacking. Like I like that. It's just a nice little
she she
touch.
she has to pull Julie out of the water. Steve has to help Etta be get out of being buried alive.
Mhm.
Um, and we're basically facing two gods for the rest of this issue,
Mhm.
all
Well, there's
building
not much
up
left in the issue anyway. But yeah,
to
so oh sorry, go ahead.
this wonderful moment where Danny uses her tiara to just decapitate Demos.
Yeah, like as she's trapped in the snake beard, she takes her tiara off and uses it like a frisbee and slices off Demos's head. Um,
In
which
such an
which is definitely, I think, the moment we were both referring to when we said like there's still like a good like warrior Diana in here
oh,
too.
there
Um,
is.
and
uh,
it's great. I love that. But yeah, so Demos is done. He is decapitated. She takes the talisman back, and
the
they
his half of the talisman, so
yes.
they connect them as one, and that takes them to the missile base where the Ares project is happening.
Hmm.
And of course, they all have a bunch of guns pointed at them.
Hmm. Only to reveal then, of course, that Ares is among them, and now Ares, god of war, has come to claim his prize, and that's where the issue ends. And then we
Uh,
get into easily my favorite cover of the collection, which is Wonder Woman #6 with this giant Ares drawing done above Diana. I love that. I love the way Perez draws Ares.
yes, with the reveal, of course, being that General Tolliver, in fact, was Ares. A twist I think did inspire something in the
The
Wonder Woman 2020 in
yeah, the
2017.
2017. Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
yes,
With a nice
but
little
we
twist on it, though. I think
yes,
it's nice.
but we open with again some news broadcasts. Um, I like that Perez gets several digs in on Ronald Reagan. Reagan not having the balls to address the nation to actually address the nation himself.
Mhm.
He makes his press secretary do it.
Yeah.
Uh, Meanwhile, it's that this idea that there was also a renegade Soviet general and his troops had now taken control of a Russian missile silo at this time. The Soviets have refused to substantiate these rumors. So the whole idea being both sides are being played to blow everything up.
Mhm.
Uh,
But yeah, we are now face to face with Ares and all of the people that Ares has manipulated to serve him. Um, and again, just I love the way Perez draws Ares here so much.
he draws
This is
amazingly, and I love whenever Perez does these just like individual face panels.
yeah,
Like
they're very nice. Yeah.
there's a lot of emotion and a lot just put in. Uh,
And they're so tiny too. Like they barely take up any of the page. But Perez puts so much detail into them.
and they just say so much. It's
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
yet our brave heroes like McCallus has an idea, um, and he takes uh, you know he takes out a key, um, and slips tries to slip some essentially some smoke bombs into everybody's hands, and
Hmm.
basically on the word it's like, right, let's use some gas grenades, um, and it's very clever, and a firefight starts out.
And
um,
that's a fair bit of these next few pages. It's
it,
just a
it,
firefight.
it does such a good job of building up the chaos.
Hmm.
And what's nice is everyone on the like our side, on like the good side, has something to do in this firefight and like really shines on the character. Like one, it's nice to see, the female characters getting in on the action in their own way. Like and seeing several was like Julia and Etta are two characters who just I fell in love with throughout this book, obviously. Um because Perez lets them do things and lets them be more interesting than just in the background. Um
Hmm.
uh but yeah, so the launch key is thrown to the floor. Diana is shot, um, and basically faded away into nothingness.
Hmm. She's
And
taken away from the fight. Um, Meanwhile, Michaelis, right? Or is it
yes,
Steve or
it's
Michaelis? It is Michaelis. No. No, that's Trevor.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah. So Trevor goes to confront this guy with the nuclear launch key.
this
Um,
is this is Tolliver
yeah.
just unloads the machine gun into the man,
Hmm.
um, and basically is trying to get everything to step down. And then Tolliver gets back up and is a flaming like zombie, basically.
Yeah, I love.
Um,
Oh, it's so cool. But yeah, so we catch up with Diana where she was sort of teleported to. She's with Ares in this black void. Ares does this great monologuing. I love the way Perez, I mean, well, yes, Len Wein, writes Ares.
yes.
Just I love this whole
Um,
monologue here. It's
and
so
Perez,
good.
I love that we're bringing in the whole this sort of the Greek tradition of sort of with the deities of Greek mythology, father killing son. Um, uh, because obviously you have Kronos, the leader of the Titans, killed his father, Uranos, aka Uranus, if you want to go with the Latin spelling, only to be slain by Zeus, and famously a prophecy that one of his sons will slay him. Um, in Greek mythology, there's workarounds, but here it's obviously meant to be Ares, possibly, as a possibility. Um, and just this entire monologue is great, and there's great juxtaposition with just the scenes of war, and Diana wants to stop it.
Hmm.
Um, and,
And through all this, through what Ares is doing to man's world and to everything around him, like we see the sort of same way that decay was drawn, or what was happening around decay. We go to Olympus here, sorry, no, we go to Paradise Island, and we see like these plants start to wither and die here, and there's a leafless tree, and Hippolyta is starting to age. I like that little touch. It's very nice.
uh,
It's only there for a page, but it's cool.
again, it's a great, and it's not the only one where we get like little flashes, because we get a
Mhm.
flashback there. We get a flash to Olympus later. We get to see the base as the dead soldiers rise up, all paralleling the action, um,
Mhm.
basically for the rest of this issue, which I
Mhm.
think,
And I mean, this whole sequence here is where the finale of the 2017 film took its cues.
yes.
It's Diana utterly defeated, and Ares saying like how he is completely won, and how he is unstoppable here, and how he is all consuming, how his war is all consuming, and how in the end, because he is destroying everything, there will be nothingness, and it leads to this fucking beautiful scene. And how Ares is defeated, I think, is so fucking brilliant. I'm gonna read off this one page here. Um, Suddenly he can feel the heat from the blossoming fireball stripping flesh from bone, reducing bone to ash, laying waste to all the world. For one brief incandescent moment, as a fiery tide sweeps relentlessly across the land, Ares is truly and finally master of the world, and then he is alone. His kingdom a charred and smoking cinder, devoid of life, and thus devoid of purpose. I, enveloped by the lasso of truth, Ares truly sees the ultimate consequences of his actions, and for the first time in his immortal existence, the war god weeps. And I fucking love that. Oh, that
And
is so good. That is so fucking good. Oh, it's amazing.
it is this. It's this beautiful thing where one, it's smart that like what can defeat a god? Really nothing. Like
Mhm.
um, and Ares doesn't quite apologize. Um, the talisman, the woman who gave Diana the talisman was Harmonia. So harmony, which
Uh-huh.
is fitting to be the antithesis to Ares. To restore the balance, and in the nick of time, the missiles don't launch.
Mhm.
Um, the zombies fall together. Um, air.
And
Um,
Ares leaves because he realizes why I would dare to say why he is a pointless god.
yeah.
You know,
At least in the
why his function as an entity is entirely meaningless.
well, it only leads to death and destruction.
Hmm.
It's not the wisdom of Athena leading armies to overcome evil.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. It's so interesting. So he just leaves, and I love that. I really, really love that. Um, but yeah, we end the issue. We're sort of tallying up our our wounded and our dead, and Steve comes in with the wounded Diana, and that is where the issue
yes.
ends. We pick
Um,
up with Wonder Woman number 7. Great, just completely blank page that opens us with Hermes here, announcing the return of Diana. And
and that Olympus is reborn.
mhm,
Um, and mind you, that we have been 7 issues, and this is where this first arc, is coming to a close.
mhm.
Um, um, I love the dialogue choices. I love the revelry. Again, you get a full 2-page spread just to have that almost Escher-esque imagery of Olympus
Mhm.
celebrating.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. For a story called Rebirth,
uh,
we get a nice little scene here on Olympus. And then we go down to Paradise Island, where Diana is brought back to the Amazons.
to basically try to heal her wounds, and this whole idea is that her very spirit seems to be dying.
Hmm.
Um, uh, Meanwhile, uh, the goddesses intercede with Zeus essentially to try um, and get him to save Diana. Um, uh, the god Pan whispers some things into Zeus's ear, which will be followed up on in an interesting-ish way.
Yeah, one that you won't quite get all the answers to, unfortunately, just reading this.
Yes.
But
Uh,
anyway, so yeah, so Diana is lowered into the
healed by
waters.
Poseidon.
Hmm.
Um, and I love the image of Rebirth of her just going down into the water and then eventually coming out of the water.
Hmm.
Um, and it all builds to this interesting idea that the gods have lost their worship in the modern day. Um, Hera comes into the fray of essentially our alliance of goddesses who have been helping Diana through all of this, and this idea of a change. Um, while on Paradise Island, um, Diana and Hippolyta have a nice dialogue um, about um, sort of recapping what's happened, um, and Hippolyta just not wanting to let Diana leave her again because of the danger. While Athena comes down in the form of an owl, which is a very nice touch, um, with another gift from the gods, and it's a set of winged sandals, which I love I love this
Yeah,
as an idea.
yeah. I mean, I don't know if those are a thing like in Greek mythology, but I just
Oh yeah, well
it feels very, in the same
you've
vein.
seen Hermes. They're Hermes wing sandals.
Well, yeah, yeah,
That's
but I mean, they're not his exact sandals. Like it's just a pair of them for her,
a,
you know?
a pair of them for her. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and
As if
it's
he
like,
has just
well,
spares lying around, you know?
yes. Um, and it's at this point where Paul's like, right, well, I can't deny the gods. You must be able to leave again and walk amongst men. Uh,
Which, it happens so much. I love it.
every time it happens, though,
Which is
he
why
does
I
it.
like a lot of Wonder Woman stories since. Like this is one of those few things where I'm like, Perez could have probably done this a little better. Where I'm just like, I like the idea that when Diana leaves Paradise Island, she can never return.
Yes.
You know,
I think we just need a little less on the tearful Paradise Island goodbye scenes.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I always
Yes.
like that other idea. But anyway, we go back to Boston.
In the
And
hospital, where
yes.
Vanessa is just deteriorating, and there's nothing
Mhm.
they can stop. Well,
Until Diana returns. She comes back to the world of man wearing the wing sandals, and she is she's there to help Vanessa, and she does. Yeah, sorry, yeah. So she heals Vanessa.
like
Um,
magic,
mhm,
she finds that McAllis died, and she says, then he died a hero. And
yeah.
Julia, back at Harvard, were worrying. I must speak to
Mhm.
her and quickly.
And we go back
Uh,
to Harvard, and this is like one of my favorite characters in the Perez run.
oh
I
God,
fucking I love Mindy Mayer. I don't know what it is about her. I love what she is, how Perez writes her, or how I guess Wayne writes her. Just I don't know. I think she's a very lovable character for
she's
some
a
reason.
lovable bitch.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
I
she is
love it.
not a good person.
Yeah, I think she's
Like
so great.
just the way she is drawn from her first appearance. Like we see her just starting with her heels,
Hmm.
um, and knocking on Julia's door, um, and she just comes in just as this sarcastic bitch who's kind of like
Yeah. Well, Julia answers the door. She's like, "Hey, you're not Etta Candace." She's like, Certainly not, Professor Cavatellis. I'm merely the answer to all your prayers, sweet thing. Here to make an offer you'd be crazy to refuse." It's great. I like
and
that.
she's a publicist.
Mhm.
This
All she
idea
wants
of
to do is just capitalize on Wonder Woman.
Um, and it's so clear that Perez just hates the consumerism and capitalism of the late 1980s, and
Hmm.
it's just distilled into this character.
Hmm.
But enough so that that she can grow as a character as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. And like
We
again, like you'll see in volume 2, there's just they do something very specific with her character that I love seeing. It's just it's so interesting. You'll see it there next episode.
it's it's
Um,
fascinating, and again, Julia basically just tells her to fuck off. She's like, it's like, oh well, I'll find my own way out, and this image of her in her own little compact mirror, like
mhm.
it's just so sinister.
Yeah, I
Um,
love it. Oh, I love it so much.
anyway, we
But
have Julia then going to the back to the hospital where Etta fills her in on the situation that Vanessa is all better, and everything just feels so warm and fuzzy.
mhm.
Um, and we basically get some wrap up. Um, Diana is basically told to put on some very 1980s clothes. Um,
And we go to meet Mindy Mayer, and I don't know, I love it. I just every scene she's in, it's like my favorite scene. I love her.
well, I think what's interesting, the costume change here.
Well, yeah, because at this point she's not like Mindy Mayer publicist. I mean, she still is, of course, but it's more like this is just Mindy Mayer, I
Who
think.
she actually is.
Mhm.
It reminds me kind of like a 70s sitcom, the design as well.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
and
Um,
I like the idea that um, one, this is where we get the name, she comes up with the name Diana Prince, um, which I think,
they promptly refuse.
yeah, she's
Yeah,
just gonna be Diana Wonder Woman.
Diana
Uh,
Wonder Woman. And then and then Wonder Woman is exposed to the public. We have all these magazine covers. There's Time, Life, People. You know, it's cool. Um,
National Geographic.
National Geographic. Um, yeah, and we get all these things that are like, you know, it's just Mindy promoting Wonder Woman. So she has like this like big like poster board of her, and she's setting up like all these meetings for her, these interviews, and I like that. It's just it's
On
good.
you know on prime time. And she becomes a celebrity because the whole idea is this is the Diana is trying to be an ambassador and is
Mhm.
allowed to be an ambassador for the first time.
Yeah.
Um, Meanwhile, the U.S. government isn't happy about all of this, mainly um, because, well, one Steve's name is cleared,
Hmm.
but the damage is done and they have to fix it. And basically, Steve hates the job that he is in.
Hmm.
But we end the issue.
So, okay, I gotta know. What were your first thoughts when you read these last two pages?
Well, my first thoughts was like, oh God, are we gonna do some racist shit? And
And just a little bit.
just a little bit.
Just a little bit. I
But I'm
mean,
like, oh, Barbara Minerva.
Barbara
I
Minerva,
know
yes.
that
This
name.
is oddly enough our second Cheetah story. Cheetah centric story, I should say, because we focused on her heavily before in Justice League. Oddly enough in the Throne of Atlantis episode. But there,
Yes.
yeah, but yeah, so we're setting up the Cheetah, and it's just, yeah, I'm sure that's exciting for you first off.
It's
Um
very exciting.
yeah.
Though I'm surprised it actually took a full issue then to actually get to it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. We're only slowly building this up throughout the next issue too. Um,
um,
so yeah, so that brings us into Wonder Woman #8, Time Passages,
Passages.
which has such a
So
great cover. First
yeah,
off,
so this one I will say is the wordiest of
yeah,
all the
but I think in the
issues.
most enjoyable way though.
Yeah, well, we change. This is the we need to do some time passaging between if 1 through 7 is like Wonder Woman year one.
Hmm.
This is the let's recap and let's get our establishing like let's
So
get
okay, so first I want to talk about this hero lineup on the cover here actually. So we have Batman, Changeling, well, Beast Boy, Shazam or Captain
Shazam,
Marvel, Blue
Ted Cord,
Beetle,
Blue Beetle,
uh,
uh,
Doctor Fate,
Doctor.
Flash, who would be Wally at this point, Martian Manhunter, Black Canary, Guy Gardner, and Superman.
That's Black Canary.
Yes,
Okay, because I couldn't really tell.
yeah, it's Black
Um,
Canary. So interestingly, this is actually mostly the Justice League International lineup, who was actually sort of the main Justice League at the time.
so
Um,
this is specifically at the time post crisis.
mhm.
Here's what we're doing.
Yeah, yeah. I actually have a fair few of the Justice League International issues because it crossed over first off with Millennium, but also it crossed over with Suicide Squad a lot.
And
Because that's
I
where
know
they,
you. I think they actually have the early bits of that title in print,
I believe
collected
so. Yeah,
somewhere.
yeah.
Uh,
But yeah, that's just interesting there. Yeah. So we start with the issue, Time Passages, Part One, Journal. Um,
yes. So these are all basically little narratives of how everyone sees the development, starting with the best character, Julia. Um,
Julia Capitelis writes her little memoir of meeting Wonder Woman, and we get so well, obviously first off, this is meant to be like, you know, since Wonder Woman was one of the few characters that got a complete rework from the ground up post Crisis. It was sort of catching her up with mainline DC continuity, so some time definitely passes in here
definitely passes.
between
Yes.
issues 7 and 9. So that's what this is mostly meant to do.
This
So
is
we talk about what Wonder Woman's been up to, how she's been publicized by Mindy, and how she's been talking at the UN. Um,
how she has become part of the Justice League.
mhm.
Um, with some action, so where we get to see the Justice League, um, and something interesting with Superman that I hope gets picked up on.
It most
That's
definitely does. Although I'm going to tell you right now, before you read Volume 2, you're going to be a little disappointed because it's going to get dropped off at one point because it continued in Action Comics.
ah
Yeah, you're going to be
well.
pissed about that. I'll let you know that now. So
Well,
just so
I mean,
yeah.
there's no reason we can't ever cover the post-crisis Action Comics.
Yeah, and I mean, also if you just wanted to read, I think it's an issue of Adventures of Superman and then an issue of Action Comics. If you just want to read those two issues, like I have no issue with that.
Yes.
Um,
Uh,
yeah. So she has joined the Justice League officially. Also, there are some very public detractors of hers. Um,
uh,
the most prominent of which is what's his name? It's the guy with the
uh,
red hair here.
G. Gordon Godfrey,
That's it.
that is a triple barrel name.
That it
Uh,
is. Um, and then towards the end of this first section of time passages here, we get this little bit where Julia says that most nights Diana just walks out naked into the woods and just appreciates the world. And that's something that's done a couple more times in later on, and they even do a whole scene about it in volume two. Just interesting little touch about her character.
it's
I
this
like that.
interesting, like again, it's sort of a non-normal that Diana sees the world differently,
Hmm.
um, and I like it.
So between each of these stories and time passages here, we get a little scene with Barbara Minerva. So right now she's on a flight. She's going somewhere, presumably Boston.
Yeah,
Um,
she's bound for Boston and Boston's Logan International Airport from London's Heathrow, um, and she is planning something with
yes,
her manservant.
which
Um,
is again just it's
uh,
there. It's there. Anyway, time passages part two, dispatch. This is the Etta Candy story. Um,
yes,
which is probably the most interesting, I think, of the four stories here.
yeah, it really is.
Because we haven't really gone really in depth with Eda's character yet, I'd
Yes.
say.
Well, what's
Um,
interesting is one, Etta does not fit the model of feminine beauty, shall we say?
mhm.
She's fat,
Yeah,
but Perez doesn't really treat her like a lot of media likes to treat people who are
mhm.
not super thin.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, Eda's I forget if they draw attention to it here. I think they do at some point where Eda's like actively trying to lose weight, and like you see that happening.
yeah,
Um,
but she hasn't been treated before this point as wrong for being fat.
mhm.
Like you feel like that her wanting to lose weight is her own decision.
Yeah.
It's not um it's not necessarily a she's being pressured by society.
Mhm.
um
But yeah, so her story here, she's writing a letter to Steve Trevor. This is where we really double down on the fact that like she is definitely into Steve Trevor, and I don't know, I just like that aspect of it. And also there's you get a sense that she is very jealous of Diana.
Jealous but respectful. Like it ends with these it doesn't end, but it's I'm growing to respect I find I'm growing to respect her more and more,
Hmm.
is one of the lines. And it's again it's this great little idea.
Hmm.
um
There's this great little bit here where we find out that the military has been testing Diana and what she can do. So they had like these machine guns just shooting at her and seeing like how much she can deflect and how she can advance and take out the guns. She like lifts up a tank at one point and lassos back out a jet. Like it's interesting. I like that. Um, and that's mostly what all this is. Etta sends this letter to Steve with a couple pictures of Diana, and that's about it.
is that it? And then
We
Barbara
go into
Minerva
our
makes it to Boston, has brought um basically a giant case containing a plant. um and she uh meets up with a special service agent who she knows, who is basically a Scottish stereotype, sort of, like with that hat.
yeah, yeah. But more on that later. We go to the time passages part three, Dear Diary. I fucking hate this one. Not because it's a bad story. I just fucking hate the way it's written.
I will say,
Like
if you are
like
dyslexic, you're gonna struggle
if
reading
you
this
go
one.
back to our third episode of the podcast, we kind of complained about the lettering of the Jim Gordon or no, of the Bruce Wayne inner monologues there in year one. This is like 10 times worse. Like
Yeah, I think.
it's really hard to read.
Is it Todd Klein doing the letters on this?
Possibly, maybe.
I'm gonna check. Is he credited at the front of the book? It might be someone called LS Macintosh.
It seems like, yeah, because John Costanza, I think, does the regular lettering, and Ellis
Yeah.
McIntosh is probably doing the special lettering here, the cursive. Um, so yeah, it's just really hard to read, and
Um,
also it probably is the weakest story of the four.
yeah. I mean, it's still nice. It gives some insight into who Vanessa is, what
Mhm.
she's thinking.
Yeah, Diana comes to visit her school, and everyone is like enamored with her. Specifically, the boy that Vanessa likes, Barry is his name. Um,
Yes.
so yeah,
Uh,
yeah, just a nice little bit. Nothing crazy.
Again, Perez writes kids really well.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Meanwhile, in our next interlude, Barbara Minerva is arguing with the Scottish stereotype, and so it sort of like keeps him out of like their business, her and her manservant,
uh,
and that's about it for that one.
and
We then
we
go into Time
end.
Passages Part 4, Tour Update, which is similarly written in this annoying cursive, but it's Mindy Mayer.
Us.
So I can forgive all sins. I will.
It's also only 2 pages, whereas the other one was 4.
Yeah, yeah. So much easier
Uh,
to get through. And it's just typical Mindy Mayer shit. She's just promoting Wonder Woman and seeing all that she can do for her.
Made
It's
Diana meet Reagan.
yeah, which is so funny. I love that. But yeah, that's about that. And then we finish on a really great last page here.
From
From
the
the
desk of
desk of Dr.
Dr. Barbara
Barbara Minerva.
Minerva.
And we find out that the Scottish stereotype has been murdered. Um
By an
and
animal.
mhm. And then we and Barbara Minerva writes a letter to Wonder Woman, hoping to meet her, and she says that she can uh she says that she possesses the second girdle of Gaia, the
As
presence
well
guarantee.
as I am certain new insights to the true fate of your Aunt Antiope and the Amazon she led can finally be learned. Um,
And then we enter this great little panel here of the cheetah silhouetted running through the night, and I love that. I love the way the cheetah is built up, and leads into this next issue really nicely. So yeah,
so
I think the cheetah overall like is mostly a buffer between these two main arcs, you know.
yes, it
But I do really
is.
like it as just this little
I,
three-part story.
it's also I think it's just really important to have this
Hmm.
buffer here,
Yeah.
to show us how Diana's how Diana's developing, how Barbara works as a character post crisis,
Hmm.
um, and how that's going to change things.
Yeah.
Um, so we move on into issue 9, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Issue 9. With another one of my favorite covers from this collection. I really love this one with the claw marks tearing through this poster of Wonder Woman, and cheetah on top of it. And I do like the cheetah design actually; it's really nice. Do you prefer this with the actual like human hair, or the New 52 thing where it's like a humanoid cheetah?
I think I prefer this.
I agree. I agree.
Um,
I like this more.
I also just think this one plays it more interestingly
Mhm.
entirely.
So we
Because
start off on
there's
this. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
because there's this in this issue in particular, there's this interesting angle of colonialism almost that Barbara Minerva is perpetuating colonialism. She has a manservant, clearly from Africa, that is sort of again, sort of corrupting sacred gods, which is an interesting theme. Um, though none of the gods are specific, which I think is probably for the best because that could turn very weird with someone like George Perez trying to write some sort of piece of some sort of made up piece of African myth. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, but yeah, so we start with a
This
ritual.
ritual that turns Barbara into the cheetah. It's
So
implied that she has to do this like every time if she wants to turn into the cheetah.
yes,
Um,
and it
I,
feeds the blood to a plant,
mm,
um, which is just an interesting idea.
mhm. And I love how on this page how we get the title here with blood of the cheetah and the way it sort of like drips down from the word blood. It's cool.
Oh yeah, it looks like a horror movie.
And we
Uh,
get a wonderful full page George Perez Wonder Woman drawing here. It's just nice. It's nice.
of her flying and enjoying freedom.
Mhm.
And we get some stuff with Mindy, uh, who is, wants to use the opportunity of possibly having a second girdle of Gaia as a publicity coup.
Hmm. So they're on their way to meet Barbara Minerva. So they make their way over there. Um,
Julia doesn't want to go because Julia thinks it's all a scam. I've done a bit of checking into this Dr. Barbara Minerva's reputation, and she's about as shady as your average weeping willow. Uh,
and so just Mindy and Diana go over to meet them. They're greeted by the manservant who takes them in to meet with Barbara. Um, and I love the way this is done here. So Barbara is very clearly, deceiving Diana, but Diana is admittedly naive, and doesn't quite understand the deceit of man yet. The only deceit she's come across is that of Ares, the god of war, who's expected to be deceitful. Um, and so this is Diana. I think that Diana's first real human interaction with betrayal. So I love the way
uh,
this is played. So she shows Barbara her lasso, and Barbara just starts spilling everything.
there is no documentation. There is no girdle. There is no bar
And
Barba, and she just throws the lasso away because she's going to give the game away.
yeah, but Diana's already figured it out. Diana feels betrayed. She flies away. Mindy goes, "Great, just freaking fabulous. Now what?" Um, and
After after Diana realizes that Mindy's just been exploiting her, and Mindy genuinely feels regret at this.
mhm.
It's like I've genuinely fucked up. So Diana, goes back to Julia. Um, basically the few of her true friends that she actually has. Um, and Julia is sympathetic that no, you have actually accomplished a lot. And while we get this nice little scene of Mindy complaining to trying to talk to Vanessa, to try to convince her, get Diana to not cut me off.
Mhm.
There's some actual apologetics here.
So
Um,
Julia goes out to sort of reason with Diana, and and just like trying to get her like understand that it's just people are like this, um
People
and
are complicated.
yeah.
Uh,
We go back to Barbara, who's becoming the cheetah again. She's going through the ritual once more,
and
and
this
I
is the first
love
time.
the transformation page. I love this.
It's very abstract.
Hmm.
Um, I love the way it's
You
drawn.
have like a literal cheetah standing at the middle as it runs forward and then becomes Barbara as these silhouettes of Barbara transforming play behind her. It's so cool looking. I love it.
And again, it's nice that it's a very abstract imagery that just tells the story.
Hmm.
Uh, and we have the cheetah stalking and attacking people, and it's being broadcast on the news. And then we get this little bit of Steve calling Etta. Um, because Steve basically just found out that his dad is dying. Uh,
Yes.
so he has to go home to Oklahoma,
Hmm.
which is a small plot thread here.
Hmm.
Um,
Which honestly, much like the cheetah plot line, like it starts off very small and then gradually build until it takes precedence. And
yes.
I really like the way that like Perez does those smaller arcs that like slowly build until they sort of intertwine with our main plot lines. It's very nice.
It also just makes it feel like, oh, there really are some stakes here. There's some
Mhm.
really good, character work.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, definitely. So
Meanwhile, we see Cheetah stalking uh, while Diana's gone out into the woods just to be by herself.
mhm,
Uh,
where she is then attacked by Cheetah, and we get a really great fight scene here, which I really like.
really, it's such a it's
We
and
see that
I
we see that Cheetah is able to actually like scratch and make Diana bleed. Um, and so it's like Cheetah is actually like a physical match for Diana.
uh, and Diana has to lasso her.
Hmm.
And there's some great thoughts, great back and forth. Um, and what's especially interesting is that because Julia and Vanessa heard something prowling around their house, Julia takes out her shotgun, and
Like, like I love that.
and shoots Cheetah right through the chest,
As you do.
saving Diana's life. And sadly, this allows her to slip from the lasso and swim away.
That's not a shotgun. That's a fucking rifle.
Oh, that's a rifle. It was
That's
a
a
shotgun
fucking rifle.
earlier.
It was. So Julia's just fucking packing.
She's packed. Again, DC Comics, if you are listening to this,
please use Julia Capitelis.
Please bring her back. She's great. I love her. But yeah, and there's this whole idea that the cheetah leaves and this sound, the sound of the drumming has finally stopped. With this interesting sort of atmosphere, because the idea of the drums just kind of drive a lot of this forward.
Mm-hmm. And so Cheetah like jumps into the water, breaks free. Diana can't find her. And so she's left just. You can tell mostly just feeling bad for Barbara. I think.
Yeah. Well, it's the first person who's really betrayed her.
Yeah.
Something that Johns will pick up on when he's writing Justice League in the New 52 and taking a very different, almost inferior direction.
But still an interesting one all the same, I think.
Yes.
Do go listen to the Throne of Atlantis episode. There's a cool Cheetah discussion there.
Yes. But Diana's decided it's time for her to go home.
And so she decides to leave. Mindy is of course pissed. But she leaves. We get another. Again, this is a lot of the same scene from way back in issue 3. In issue 2, sorry, where Diana leaves Paradise Island. But I think it's actually a lot more impactful because it's Julia and because it's Diana's found family.
Because we've just spent like 6 issues building this relationship, and now they're saying.
I like that. I know I've heard you say in the past. I want to bring this up. I know I've heard you say in the past that like one of the things you love about DC Comics as a whole is its continuous theme of found family. And I don't think you even knew that Wonder Woman had sort of the same thing that we see a lot in Batman and Superman comics. So I know this is like, I know one of the things that you would mostly love about Julia's character.
I mean, it's a character. It's why I latch on to Julia so much. That and just because her sarcasm.
She's a really fun character. Yeah. But yes, I know that's a theme you really like throughout all of DC Comics. So I just wanted to bring that up. But she leaves. That leads us into Wonder Woman number 10.
And this is where we're entering into the
actual
big 5-part epic that Perez
Challenge
wants
of the Gods.
It's
called. Which starts off a little slow, but really ramps up. And I think overall I prefer it to the first half.
Interesting. Mostly. Bar that one thing. We'll get to it.
Yeah. I'm here for Diana Trevor. That's what I'm here for. But more on that.
Oh no, not that one thing. The other one thing.
Well, no. Oh, no. I'm saying like that's the main thing I love about this story.
See, I find Steve and Etta's relationship throughout this run really interesting and almost more interesting. But we begin slow once again on Olympus. Pan is whispering into Zeus's ear.
Now, Pan is a character from Greek mythology.
Yes.
Correct? Okay. What is typically is this accurate to how he's typically portrayed?
So Pan is sort of a lost god. The big Pan portrayal is go and tell the world that the great god Pan is dead. A sailor off the coast of Greece is basically told that Pan is dead and it must be announced. The idea of him being a trickster figure works because the whole idea is that he is responsible for nature and all the forces of nature, both good and evil.
Is there who would be the Greek typically, if not Pan, who would be the Greek trickster god? Is there an equivalent?
There really isn't. This isn't like Norse mythology, which has.
Because the only thing I could think of is when in the Batman the Animated Series episode when Max Zeus calls Joker Hermes. And I don't know if that's accurate.
Hermes is more of a messenger. Again, that's the one. There may be some trickster parallels with Hermes, though they're not, especially in Hermes' origin, but not necessarily trickster in the affairs of mortals.
Okay.
I will say the way Perez portrays Zeus in this is accurate, the horny bastard.
Oh yeah, yeah. That is something I very much do, and I was like, wow, they really just go all in on that. I've read this volume twice, and like just, God, it just disgusts me every time, but it's great.
Yes.
Um,
Um,
so yeah,
we're starting with
Zeus commands that he meet with Diana. And we go down to Paradise Island. Diana meets with who's this character here?
uh,
Should I try to pronounce this? Euboa, I think is how you pronounce
that's
her name.
probably that's probably the closest, I think.
Hmm.
Uh,
And
that OE might make a different sound depending on if it's like the connected letters versus just O and E, and I can't tell based on the lettering.
yeah,
Uh,
so we go over to this congregation of the Amazons, and and they're all debating with one another, specifically about the American flag, which I think is interesting. Um, And the next moment of catastrophe, are we somehow tied to this coat of arms through the princess? Looking at the imagery of the flag there and Diana's traditional costume, and pondering the connection between the two,
yes.
which is something that we're going to touch upon very heavily here.
I also think it's interesting because again, this is 1988.
Hmm.
We are at a point. We are entering the point of history where the United States is perhaps at its worst, and it comes as dishonorable, I suppose. Just continually um, acting as a world police and building up through then eventually 9/11 and just the current forever wars that we are now under just as a society.
Hmm.
Um, and I think it's important that Perez is trying to reckon with it
Yeah,
because
but
he is very critical of the current political situation.
mhm.
Like, uh,
But
it's
anyway,
very important.
so Zeus calls down, says, Diana, heed thy master's voice. Be not alarmed, my children, be joyful, for thou art beloved in my sight. For her triumph over Ares, the Princess Diana has earned a special gift, one which I alone am able to bestow. Thus
Okay,
come
so
with.
as soon as I read this page, I'm like, oh God,
You
we're
knew what was
doing this,
coming.
aren't we?
Yeah.
It's like, oh
He says,
Jesus.
Thus come with me, Diana, come into the presence of thy master. So Diana, again, unfortunately, being naive, leaves and goes to join with Zeus. She flies up into the sky and meets with Zeus, and
Is asked to worship him,
mhm.
and he wants to seek now communion of the flesh.
Interestingly, Perez then has the consent conversation. Diana says, During my time in man's world, great Zeus, I learned that such decisions must be mutual. I cannot surrender that which is mine alone to give without a true feeling of desire and commitment. Please, Almighty One, try to understand. Zeus
Understand, child?
Zeus being fucking Zeus freaks the fuck out and lashes out. And I gotta say, you're probably gonna be mad that I even bring this up, but I've like I think because I read these around the same time. This and Garth Ennis's Preacher. The way that Garth Ennis portrays God is very similar to how
I,
Perez writes Zeus here. I
no
like it.
comment because I haven't read Preacher.
I'm just saying, like when Garth Ennis writes God, it's Greek mythology Zeus basically, and
Okay.
I love that.
Uh, I mean, you could make some interesting parallels to how the how Zeus and Jupiter through Greek becoming Roman eventually becoming influencing Christianity. But that is a discussion we would need a lot more time for and a lot
Indeed.
more preparation
I
for.
mean, we're gonna do the Preacher conversation someday, so it's gonna
Again,
happen.
another
I'm
time.
I'm telling you now, Jacob, you're gonna read Preacher someday, and you're gonna love it.
Joey, this is a can of worms that I am not opening at this moment. We are pushing the can of worms into the future.
It will be pushed into the future. Anyway, so yeah, so Zeus freaks out, sends Diana back down to Paradise Island, and
Strips her of her power because the fucker has an ego. Hippolytus
and
pissed because your cruel son Heracles showed me such respect centuries ago, Zeus.
mhm.
That which
which
not would.
which we're gonna start talking about that element that you really don't like about the story now, I think, because it's
I
important to say that like Perez immediately draws the comparison between what just happened between Diana and Zeus and what happened in the past between Hippolyta and
and
Heracles.
it's a specific aspect of the element that happens in the end.
Hmm. So I think immediately drawing a comparison between those two and explicitly stating the Diana Zeus thing as a bad
As
thing
this is a bad thing.
is just something important to remember for later on in the story.
Very important.
Yeah. So anyway, so Zeus comes back to the gods and is all, "Can you believe this bitch?" And and Zeus is rightfully swayed to say, "Okay, maybe we shouldn't have been so harsh." Zeus eventually comes to the conclusion that he will test Diana's skill and see if she's actually worthy of the power that he just stripped from her.
So yeah, this is how we get the whole idea of the challenge of the gods, with
Yes.
several gods having different challenges. Um, and it's like this idea of, either destiny or destruction awaits thee now.
Mhm.
Um,
So Diana agrees to this challenge. She puts on her armor and
Hippolyta hates this.
oh,
Uh,
yeah, yeah, makes sense.
Rightly so.
Mhm.
Um, and she must descend into these cave systems underneath Paradise Island.
Mhm. And
Again, drawing on the classic idea of imagery of descending into the underworld.
Now,
Classic
is the
hero.
challenge of the I feel like the challenge of the gods is something pulled from Greek mythology, isn't it? Not the idea itself, but like what it is. Just the idea of
A lot of
these,
them are pulled. Well, one of the challenges is pulled from the labors of Heracles specifically. Um,
which makes
there's
sense because
also
we're going to come back to Heracles soon. So
there's some ideas I think taken from the story of Orpheus and
okay.
Eurydice, or Eurydice, depending on how you pronounce it. It's one of those weird ones, involving loved ones in the underworld. Perez isn't drawing from one specific myth, but
Okay,
is
gotcha.
he's drawing on the whole idea of a Greek hero. To be a Greek hero must go through these challenges and face monsters and come back changed,
Yeah.
usually with a
So
wife.
so she descends into down this like sort of like stark white marble staircase.
The
And
idea is that it's Pandora's box, which, okay, technically not accurate to, like, Pandora's box was literally just a jar that housed all the evil in the world, and Pandora let it out because Zeus basically made it a temptation because Zeus is a dick. Um, and the only thing that was saved in the box is hope, to represent that humanity still has hope while there's all this evil in the world. It's sometimes a pretty story depending on who tells it. Um, but I like the idea of almost Pandora's box as a metaphor, as descending into this place where all the evils of the world is kept.
hmm,
Uh, because she descends these stairs and she finds a cartridge shell. It's like, why is there a cartridge shell here? Something that I was asking, and then she basically has to face her first challenge. Um,
does this thing actually have a name?
it's
I'm
the
not-
Hecatoncheires. This was used in the new Teen Titans, where I was
Oh
complaining about
shit,
it.
you're right. Okay.
Yeah,
That is
it's the
coming back.
hundred-handed ones.
Yeah,
So, and
that's cool.
I love this almost metaphorical idea that Perez goes with just the hands coming out of the darkness.
Mhm,
Like we never see them like we never.
mhm.
It's like it's one being, but we never see it
Yeah.
as one thing.
Yeah. And
Um,
so Diana uses her axe. She first off, she has an axe that looks like the WW thing. And I don't like that. So she smashes through this staircase and breaks through the floor here. And thus has passed her first challenge. I believe that's all that
Basically,
is. Um
yes.
so she comes down here. She's left in this chamber here. She goes through a tunnel and meets her second challenge, which is the seven-headed Hydra. And I like that. I love the way Perez draws this thing. And that
I'm
ends
a
off the
sucker
shit
for
town.
whenever the Hydra is used.
It's a
Like,
cool idea. Like I don't know, I like that.
and
But
I like that we'll get to it in the next issue. But Diana's genre savvy enough to know you don't cut off the Hydra's head.
mhm.
That makes two heads grow back. Um,
But yeah, so we start off Wonder Woman number 11 here. Nice little cover
I,
here.
I
Nothing too
love I
bad.
love just the silhouette of just this body on a spider web and Diana looking on
Which
in
is interesting because I
horror.
don't think that even references anything specific in the issue, does it?
Um, it, I know it happens, but I is it this issue that it happens? Yeah, it happens in this issue. Just not at
Mm.
just we see the perspective flipped. On page 12.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's a thing that
That
happens.
oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Okay. I swear I read this recently. Anyway, so yes, we kick off. The gods are watching Diana go through this. We get a great two-page spread then of the title page with fire and torment, and we see Diana fighting the Hydra. Looks really cool. I like it. Challenge of the
Uh,
Gods Book 2, it's called. So yes, we go
uh,
into this. Diana's trying to figure out a way to fight the Hydra, to even touch it, you know. Um, so what she ends up doing is she wraps her lasso around the seven heads.
heads. And strikes through the heart, which is okay. It's a very, I think it's actually a cool twist on the way. So in media, the Hydra is usually defeated by someone starts to cut off the heads, and oh my gosh, two heads grow back. Oh wait, but we have poison or fire, so we just burn the stumps before they can grow back. But like actually tying them together and then shooting it through the heart, I think is actually really smart. Like
Yeah, it's a cool
it's
idea, and it, you know what, for something that's not like based on a specific event in Greek mythology, it feels like Greek mythology, doesn't it?
well, I
You
mean,
know.
it is based on a it's this is one of the labors of Hercules.
Well, yeah,
Um,
no, no, yeah, but what I'm saying is like this specific way of the Hydra being defeated.
oh yeah, it draws on certain themes. The idea of proficiency in archery, getting someone out of trouble, is a big thing in the climax of the Odyssey. But it's taking these elements and really remixing them into telling like a new story, which I think is just perfect, and it's why we tell stories anyways. Um, but
So we get a one-page scene here then, which I gotta say I don't like. I think it's I think it's very poorly handled because it feels very rushed.
of
The
uh,
Steve,
of Steve.
yeah,
Yeah, finding that his dad just immediately dies,
yeah,
which
like as he lands and his
I I I
just
think Perez might have needed another page just to
yeah, just to like let the moment sit a little bit
because
longer, you know? Just
eventually they do some good stuff with it, but it's just
yeah,
these
I just
first bit.
like by the time this scene came up, I had forgotten that they had mentioned that his dad was sick earlier, but again, even then that was only like one panel where they mentioned that. So we get to this page here, and I read this page and I was like, wait, what? I didn't know like what to even make of that. I was like, that all right, thanks. I guess that's what happened. All right. You know? And that's all we get. Like the scene doesn't go on. We just go over to Paradise Island. Um
Um,
Hippolyta is obviously pissed that Diana has to endure this alone. And she sees a vulture, a very creepy looking vulture, I might
so
add.
I
Uh
mean, it's hard not to make a vulture creepy.
I think
Um,
there are lovable ways to draw a vulture.
are there?
I think so. I'm sure there's like a Disney version or something.
The only Disney version I can think of is like the Jungle Book,
Yeah,
and
they're kind
that's
of they're not like horrifying there.
they're still a little creepy.
I
Uh,
don't know.
I don't know. That's
I don't know.
drawing a vulture.
Just a comment. I don't know. Anyway, um, so yeah, so we so she sees this vulture. It sort of like gets into her mind. It says it's dark eyes burning. The carrion bird somehow touches Hippolyta's mind and soul, and the answer to her silent prayers at last becomes clear. It is time for the queen to surrender to the mother. And so she takes off her crown and puts on the set of armor and rides a horse over to the challenge of the gods. And we catch back up with Diana, who is on.
Who was allowed to briefly sleep um, by Morpheus,
But is awoken by her next challenge, and it's
which
just
is
I'm assuming again this is just a Greek mythology thing I don't know. Um,
um, I think the idea is just the wailing souls of the damned in Tartarus is the idea. It's not explicitly that, but it's playing on that idea of
yeah,
just
okay.
uh, wailing souls driving people mad.
hmm
Um,
and then Diana starts to see like these like souls like I'm guessing get to her, and it makes her start to see visions of her friends and family in danger. She sees all these Amazons being sucked into a portal, and then this is where we get that cover image
yes.
of Julia trapped in this webbing with these like bat-like creatures clawing at her. Um, and I don't know, I love that. So she like begs Diana to like set her free. Diana goes over to Julia. Julia becomes this like serpent type thing.
Yes, the Echidna, the
Echidna.
mother of all monsters.
Yes. And
Actual thing from Greek mythology. Basically, every
Jacob,
Greek.
I'm gonna fucking kill you at some point.
Listen. Let me do this. Every monster in Greek mythology basically came out of this thing.
Cool.
Um,
Anyway, um, so Hippolyta makes her way to the cavern that Diana first entered when she started the challenge of the gods. Philippus is there to meet her. We haven't talked about much. She's
she's she's
she's
a,
she's
she's a
this
minor
closer.
character, but she's sort of an advisory position. She's
Yeah.
interesting, just not a whole lot.
Mhm. So Philippus is there to stop her because it is Diana's fight to face alone. Hippolyta and Philippus start fighting each other then, and Hippolyta wins because, well, it's Hippolyta. She puts Philippus's unconscious body on a horse and sends it back to Paradise Island, or at least the mainland.
Yes, the main
And
city. Um,
Hippolyta enters the cavern, and meanwhile Pan is watching behind her. Meanwhile, Wonder Woman is still fighting the Echidna, and let's see. How does she defeat this thing?
um,
It's not entirely clear, is it?
yeah, well, she just punches her way away and runs, um, which I think is very much just running away to try to live to fight another day. Um,
Hmm. She
uh,
then is forced into another vision of seeing Steve's plane crashing again. Um, and she makes her way into the water to find the wreckage, where she is then transported to this desert-looking area with a pile of rocks and the crashed plane there still there. And this voice begins speaking to her. It says, "Hello, princess. I've been waiting a long time for your arrival. For as long as I could." Diana says, "How long?" Oh yeah, she goes, "Who? You speak American," which I like that line.
yes.
This figure goes, "For as long as I can remember. You're pretty fluent in it yourself. That blinding light, I cannot see you. Sorry, I guess I've grown accustomed to it over the years. There, in a few seconds, you'll be able to see clearly. No, it cannot be. That armor, the coat of arms you wear." And then the figure is revealed. Yes, I am the warrior of whom you for whom you were named. If you'd like, you can call me Diana. And I this is like my favorite idea in this whole story. I fucking love it.
We'll get to it in the next issue. This is George Perez tributing the fact that Wonder Woman is a character who born of the First World War, the
Yeah,
Second World War.
yeah,
Um,
and I love that. It's finding a way to make that previous version, that golden age version of Wonder Woman, still a thing technically. But I love the little twist on it that we'll get into in this next issue.
yes,
And fun fact, so something important to mention here: Challenge of the Gods is not a solo story technically. Wonder Woman number 12 that we're about to get into is also one of the first tie-ins to a DC event from 1988 called Millennium. Um, Millennium is a Green Lantern focused event, very Manhunter focused. Oddly enough, after we recorded the Zero Year episode and I told you that this is what we're reading next, I had actually started collecting Millennium. I don't
Millennium.
know. I forget what exactly got me to it. I think it was because I had a Suicide Squad tie-in from way back when, and I was like, "What is this event?" I didn't know what it was. And so I was looking into Millennium more. I started collecting it, and I was like, "Fuck!" It ties into the next book we're reading on the podcast. Um, so I haven't read it yet. I have a bunch of the issues from it. I'm waiting until I have all the tie-ins to actually read
Yeah,
it.
because it's
Um,
also like it's what an 8 week event with a bunch of tie-ins.
Yeah, so the
Uh,
idea was that like with Millennium, like there were 8 issues. It was a weekly series, and after within each week, like Millennium number one would come out, and all of these times would come out. So I have a bunch of the week one tie-ins. There's the Firestorm tie-in, Justice League International, Flash.
I know there's a Batman tie-in like
Yeah, during week two.
that's like immediately after the reintroduction of Jason Todd.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. I have that issue, and it says Batman: The New Adventures on it, which I think is fun. But yeah. So this would be the first Millennium tie-in. Wonder Woman is one of the titles that got affected the least by Millennium, but those influences are still definitely there, and
there.
you see these little lead-ins to the larger event throughout this.
Yes,
So
and lead outs almost.
yeah, yeah. So
And
I
it's
mean,
in issues.
they do catch you up on what's happened?
Yeah, they catch you up, but like it's still a little choppy, just a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially with issues 12 and 13. Um, but that being said, I think it is good to note that Perez still got to tell the story he was telling.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think it's pretty apparent that a lot of Challenge of the Gods was plotted out, and then he was told, "Oh yeah, you have to tie it into Millennium," um, and this is the result. So we kick out
uh,
the issue. Hippolyta is making her way through the same challenges that Diana was going through, or at least the aftermath of the challenges.
yes.
Um, Meanwhile, Steve is back home, and he's home with his mother. Etta is talking to his, or no, sorry, not his mother. What am I saying? Um,
Uh,
he's just, oh yeah, this is his aunt, right? I believe.
yes, his aunt.
Yes.
Uh,
I was
uh,
like, literally can't be his mother.
yes,
I
his mother
had
is.
to remind myself of that. Um,
Um,
but yeah,
and
so
it's a nice scene of. I really like the scene of mourning. I like what Etta gets to do here.
yeah, yeah, I like that.
'Cause it's this nice little sort of public grieving, and we lead to this idea that this warrior woman called Diana, being the one whom you are named, it's time you learned of your true heritage. It's like, oh, but the challenge of the gods. Challenges come in many forms, princess. The challenge to accept your own significance is in many ways more difficult than battling any Hydra. Um, which I love I love this idea. Um,
Mhm.
and I'm glad Perez was able to make this issue one of the tie-ins because
Yeah,
like
yeah, it's
if the last issue had to be a tie-in, that would be hell.
yeah,
Like
yeah, definitely. Yeah, how do you work off of that? But
yeah,
no, this is great. So this is of the content within this issue. We talked about a lot about like your favorite like overall stories in this. Like I think this is my favorite individual issue of the whole collection. Um,
yeah, it might be mine too.
so for now we'll just call her Golden Age Diana until we get a
Yes.
proper name. Well, we're about to get a name actually just now. So she starts telling her backstory, how she got to this place. So she was a pilot. She met one Ulysses Stephen Trevor, U.S. Trevor, um, during their time in the Air Force, and this all happened during World War II. They got married. They had a son who was named Stephen. Things start to come together. The Steve Trevor that we know is the son of
Diana Rockwell.
Diana
Uh,
Rockwell and Ulysses Stephen Trevor.
uh,
Um, so
Ulysses
Di-
being, of course, the romanization of Odysseus, the
Jacob, I'm gonna
protagonist of.
fucking murder you. Fuck off. So anyway, so Diana is called back into the Air Force, and she, oh, actually, more on that later. Actually, the story gets cut off. Then she's called back into the Air Force. Anyway, meanwhile,
But
Hippolyta,
well, she is. It's like their
sorry,
hope. She mentioned she writes each other, and it all builds up to the end of August when America dropped the atomic bombs. Um, and that's when they had a reunion. And then
yeah.
we cut over to Pan.
Pan still following
Um,
Hippolyta. I
I
like this little sequence here where Pan like plays this instrument and gets these skeletons to rise from the
yes,
ground and fight Diana.
using the Hydra's teeth
Hmm.
is the idea, which
Yeah, it's a cool idea. I love it.
I know that's from Greek mythology, but I can't remember where. I think again,
Good.
I think it was another sort of Hercules type thing. Um,
Okay.
yes.
So
Um,
anyway, back in the home of Stephen Trevor, or sorry, oh no, sorry, this is actually, sorry, this is played alongside the flashbacks. So
yes.
there, Steve and Ed are looking through like a photo book, photo album. Oh my God, I couldn't think of the name of a fucking photo album. Jesus.
Us damn millennials.
You know, by the time we're done with this is probably going to be our second longest episode, Jacob.
Very possibly.
Anyway, so we continue. We go back into the flashbacks. So now Diana is called back into the Air Force, um, and she basically gets the Stephen Trevor backstory, the old Steve Trevor backstory, or which really isn't changed that much to the current Steve Trevor backstory. Anyway,
With less interference from evil gods trying to kill her.
yeah.
Uh,
So she goes out in her plane and it's shot down. She falls into the water and is sucked over to Paradise Island. Meanwhile, Hippolyta is fighting off the skeleton creatures. Again, going through the same challenges that Diana went through. Pan is still following her around, being an asshole. Back to the flashback. So Diana winds up on Paradise Island, and sees these Amazons fighting off. Oh yeah, the same creature from before, right?
yeah.
Yeah. I can't think of the name right now.
The Hecatoncheires.
Thank you. I'm never gonna remember that.
It's a complicated word.
It is. It is. So anyway, so they're fighting it off. And and Diana comes in with her gun and tries firing at it. And this creature gets to Diana and do we get that reveal yet? Yeah, okay, so it attacks Diana.
She shoots, and we see then we
Everything goes
basically
white. We see
the
news
di-
of Diana's disappearance get back to the Trevors.
the day
Um,
before Christmas.
yeah.
Uh,
Because of
and
course it's got to be a Christmas thing, doesn't
of
it?
course it does.
Yeah. So anyway, that is pretty much the end of Diana's story, or I should say Diana Trevor's story. Um, and she goes, everything was pretty much a blur for a while after that. I can vaguely remember whispering my name to somebody who to help me, somebody who held me, and then I died. And then they are met by Hades, right?
Hades.
Hades, yes.
Uh,
Who takes who's there to take Diana Trevor back. And what basically happened was we see here how the Amazons got a hold of the gun, um, and the iconography of the American flag that Diana Trevor was holding was held onto by the Amazons. She was given a proper Amazon funeral, and her the American flag iconography was used to inspire the armor that Diana Prince now wears. I love that idea. I love the way it
yes.
all comes back around. It's so well done.
And
Um,
it's press tribute to the golden age of comics. Um,
yeah.
on another note, I also really like that Hades isn't portrayed as a villain here.
No, no, not at all.
Like,
And I really do like that.
uh, because again, that's just the thing that I don't like is when Hades is portrayed as a villain because Hades isn't the devil. Stop making him the devil, people.
Mhm.
But yeah, and Diana Trevor goes off into her afterlife, where she
Yeah.
then, it's implied, meets her husband, and
Yeah.
our issue ends building
Okay.
up the Millennium crossover.
Yes. Pan comes to Diana and says, "Thou shalt journey to the citadel of the Green Lanterns to confer with the legendary guardians of the universe. There thou shalt undertake thy next challenge to assist in the birthing of immortal man. But beware, child, for danger lurks there that threatens all that is, and they are at the heart of it. They are called manhunters, Diana, and no man or woman escapes the manhunters." And I like I know you really liked the Manhunters back when we read the Jeff Johns stuff, so I'm sure that was really cool for you.
It's really cool. It's kind of a shame that like it's in this whole other event.
Yeah, yeah. And Millennium was only ever collected once, and it's fucking so out of print. It's unbelievable.
Wasn't
Um,
it collected like before ebooks, so it's also hard to get in
yeah,
like an
you can't
ebook
even get it
form?
digitally. Yeah, you're like you're fucked on getting that thing. Which is why I just bought all. I mean, to be fair, the individual issues are not hard to come by. I bought the whole 8 issue miniseries for $15. Like
That's
it's
that's good to know.
yeah.
Um,
So I wouldn't worry if you ever were interested in reading it. It's not hard to come by.
it's not hard to find, and who knows?
Neither are the tie-in issues. So,
Maybe they'll reprint it in an Omni at some point when they run out of other events to do.
but yeah, so Diana goes off to face that challenge, and meanwhile, Hippolyta sees uh,
Harpies.
what's up?
She's attacked by harpies.
Harpies.
Um,
I I'm not even gonna say what I thought you said. Anyway,
you thought I said herpes, didn't you?
just a little bit. So anyway, so Hippolyta is attacked, and she sees uh um I mean,
Heracles.
Heracles, yeah, but I mean, like he's holding up Paradise Island is the idea. Like
Yes, and he's
that is Heracles' fate.
in
Um,
stone.
yeah, I
Um,
love that. Such a cool image. All right, second to last issue, and we this is a 2.5 hour podcast already. Holy fuck. Wonder Woman number 13. We go into here. We see picking up exactly where we left off. Heracles is holding up Paradise Island. Um, we meet a Cyclops down here, which is sure.
well, the idea is, this is Poseidon's challenge. It's
Mhm.
a challenge of a Cyclops, um, which makes sense.
Meanwhile,
Uh,
we find out that the real Pan is dead.
yes. I suppose, which I should have seen coming, knowing
Mhm.
Greek mythology.
Yeah.
But
Well,
my
the
brain
idea is that the Pan that sent Diana on her mission there was a manhunter.
was a manhunter and
Yeah.
wasn't actually Pan.
Yeah.
Um, but you sort of just think that like, oh, all the gods are real in and alive in the DC universe. Pan's also going to actually be alive, but
Mhm.
nope, he is dead.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and Zeus sees and's like, holy shit, I've actually fucked up.
Mhm.
Hera gives him, a good talking to, and they send Hermes essentially to try and, bring this to a happy ending, where we get our title Demon Plague, um, and we get a sort of a Justice League cameo.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, you get a little who's who of some of the main leaguers at the time. Captain Atom was a big part of this event actually, and I know you don't know much about him, but
which
he's
one's
there.
Captain Atom?
The all blue one, the one
Oh,
that
okay,
next to Martian Manhunter there.
okay,
Yeah, we see Aricia here actually, which is kind of cool.
yes,
A
kind of cool.
pre-death Aricia, which you've never seen before.
This is also
uh,
pre Hal Jordan going insane as well.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Um,
and
uh,
Batman and
and
Superman
Batman
are
and
here.
Firestorm is there. I don't know how much you know about Firestorm. Um,
I vaguely know what his deal is.
Yeah, but I don't know, it's just cool. So yeah, so Diana is called away from them to continue the challenge of the gods, and she's called away by Hermes, and Hermes sends her on her way. Um, so Diana joins her mother in the fight against the Cyclops.
uh, they have a
Just kind
nice reunion scene.
of
Um,
they tie up the Cyclops, and he begs for them to slay him. Um, which is interesting. I don't know if that's playing on any actual Greek mythology or anything.
well, the implication is this is the blind Cyclops that Odysseus blinded in the Odyssey.
Okay.
And I think that's the idea. That's at least that's sort of how it reads to me, especially with the way the eye is colored as like this black thing instead of like an
Okay.
actual
Interesting.
eye.
Okay, that's
As
kind of
as
cool.
resident Cyclops expert,
Okay, now I
uh,
want to start to chronicle Hippolyta's thought process here. Now, because Hippolyta sees her attempted rapist entirely made of stone now and tortured to hold up an entire island for the rest of eternity, does this make her feel bad for him? And, like, I I want to prepare listeners who don't know what's about to happen. Just
this is where this is why this wasn't a 10 out of 10 book for me. This is it because it hurts a lot. There's some interesting of should we show mercy? Should we not?
mhm.
Uh, Paula thinks maybe no, but then she is. They are attacked by flame. Um,
And it's also worth noting, like, on the topic of forgiven attempted rapists, Zeus is also forgiven in the end too.
yes, which
So yeah,
mm,
yeah, just
yes. Anyway,
anyway. So
we bring back
the
the echidna thread. Um,
yeah,
so a minotaur and a chimera. Show up the
okay.
chimera. Like,
Jacob, I want to know, Mister Fucking Expert, is it
yes.
Minotaur or Minotaur?
Uh, technically it should be minotaur because of Minos.
Okay.
Um,
See,
also not actually a child of echidna. Technically different.
Jacob, I'm gonna. If I was actually in the same vicinity as you,
You would
I'd be in
probably
your
try to
fucking neck
throttle
right
me
now.
three
You'd be
times
dead. Yeah,
over.
you'd be fucking dead already.
But
Anyway,
anyway, I love the fight. Again, using a chimera is great, just in general, because we don't get a whole lot of chimeras used in like in like actual visual stories riffing off of Greek mythology. With head of a lion, body of a goat, tail of a snake, um, and then the kid that wants them all dead. Uh, there's this um, there's this whole idea
the
of
blind Cyclops breaks free and stops the Minotaur from attacking them. Um, and then the sort of like that part of the cavern sort of like breaks down, and Diana and Hippolyta are left alone, where
uh,
they are then met by Harmonia, um, who we've only heard mention of up to this point,
yes.
and she
Uh,
has the final part of the talisman, I guess.
well, we saw Harmonia once. She was the wizened old woman, that crone who gave the talisman. This is her restored to away from
Oh,
madness.
she was the one in Ares's domain.
Yes,
Oh, okay, gotcha.
yes. Um, Again, it's this whole idea of only she who is pure of essence can capture the demons within this crypt and deliver them unto their new host, the god of destruction, my father Ares. Um, and this whole idea of delivering the demons, completing the challenge, um, playing again off the Pandora's box idea of the demons being let out and now being recaptured. I think is sort of what Perez is going for. Um,
Hmm.
it's not perfect, but it's an interesting idea. Um, and we build up to um, basically Diana saving the day, and we learn the fate of Antiope, who um, who Hippolyta calls out for, um, and this whole uh, is the reason why Heracles torments Hippolyta still is the idea, and we build basically the horde to being captured in flames, being strong enough, destroying things on Paradise Island, and eventually being held together when Ares can show up to receive it, um, and being given the amulet to seal everything away. Um, and um, then the issue ends with Hermes appearing, because Hippolytus.
And we get another Millennium time because we have to do this. Your next challenge is to return to Man's World, Diana. To avenge the murder of my son, you must seek out the Manhunter who impersonated Pan, and you must slay
Slay
him.
him.
And you're not going to see that because we're going to go right into Wonder Woman number 14,
14.
which finishes off this collection. So the Manhunter Millennium thing has already passed. This would be after the Millennium event has finished now at this point.
It's got
Um,
to be very close to the end just because there's a whole month in between issues.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, the idea was that because it was an 8 issue miniseries and they were weekly, is that most of the titles participating in the crossover got 2 issues each. So week one was the first Wonder Woman issue, week five was the second Wonder Woman issue. So this would be like immediately post Millennium, like everything's over, everything had like just ended with that.
right.
So
Issue 14, Diana's returning, and on her way back, she's underneath Paradise Island where Heracles is holding it up.
and is
Uh,
now in human form,
yes, this is
and
for the glory of Gaia, and
I just right away Perez is portraying Heracles as noble.
as so it's okay for Heracles to feel regret, like after
Yeah,
several thousand years, but
yeah,
the framing here is that violence is automatically forgiven.
yeah.
And
Especially with what happens by the end of this issue.
yeah, and that is just a problem.
Yeah.
It is you can see why this would is why it brings down just the entire collection. Um uh
Well, especially because it calls back to the very first issue and the origins of the Amazons and how Ares gained power. Um,
uh, yes, but Diana rescues her mother, brings her to the surface, goes back down to relieve Heracles of his physical torment, which I'm okay with that in theory, as it's several millennia of physical torment. Um, but it only works if he still has to live with actually live with the mental anguish of what he's done and still be kind of an outcast and not immediately be forgiven. Because Diana brings him up and he has a giant speech where he apologizes. Um, and
and again, it's fine that he apologizes, and feels regret.
but then he's hailed, and
Yeah. And freed of his burden
um,
and is no longer forced to hold up the entirety of Paradise Island. And Diana
um,
carries him out of there. And
uh,
and brings
And
him
he's hailed.
forth.
And Zeus and Hera have a reconciliation, which I'm more okay with, but that's because we're dealing with gods who are amoral and not necessarily a good thing. You're still not technically supposed to like Zeus by the end of this.
Yeah, but him and Heracles do sort of go through the same thing.
Yeah.
Right? They're portrayed in the same light and forgiven in the end. Um, but anyway,
Hermes is still a little sad that his son died. Then we cut over to Oklahoma, where we get a great scene between Etta and Steve.
and Steve is now ginger for some reason.
I think that's because there's a new colorist on this issue.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Huh.
it's Carl Gafford is coloring this issue.
I mean, you
Um,
could tell. You could definitely tell.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but
But
like
yeah,
they
so yeah, they get a nice little moment where they connect, and Perez goes all in on the Steve Trevor Etta Candy relationship,
yes.
which is
I
something that I don't think anyone would ever do anymore.
I like it.
It's nice. Yeah,
It's
I don't
nice.
mind it.
I also like the idea that Wonder Woman doesn't necessarily need a love interest. Like
Yeah,
she
I
doesn't need
mean,
it.
yeah.
I also want some more superheroes, but that just don't necessarily have explicit love interests. Um, but just have a family of people that they care for and love. In that way,
Okay.
because there is a tendency for every superhero to have someone that they are devoted to.
hmm
Um,
I mean, there are superheroes that are less focused on their love interests, but I mean, I would say most superheroes do need a love interest.
I
You
mean,
know.
especially with just the big three of DC: Superman and Lois Lane, Batman and Catwoman. Wonder Woman could be the one odd one out and just Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
I like it.
But I mean, hey,
Um,
according to DC, Batman has no love interest, you know?
yeah, we all
Yeah.
know that that's not
Yeah.
true. Um,
Anyway, so yeah, so Hippolyta is healing here after the ordeal that she's gone through. She's greeted by Philippus, who is also healed. Um, they go to meet with Heracles,
they
who once
throw a
again
festival,
for Heracles.
um,
And
and
then Hippolyta and Heracles are alone, which hasn't happened since he tried to rape her.
since he raped her, it wasn't an attempt.
Are you sure? I mean, okay, I guess you're right.
It is explicitly made clear in the text that that has happened. Um, and she forgives him, and he
Yeah.
hasn't actually done anything to earn that forgiveness.
hmm
Like,
I mean, at the very least, Heracles is then called away by the gods. So this is not a romance that is allowed to continue. Um, there's
yes.
yeah, there's also just this weird bit where here we go. Heracles says to her, "I pray that my sins of madness can someday be erased from thy memory, Hippolyta, that you might truly see the depths of my feelings towards you. Could it be that you?" And Hippolyta says, "I am still a woman after all, and it has been a very long time, and I lost my goddamn mind."
Yeah. Especially since the madness made him kill his wife and children. Just gonna make sure we all remember that.
Oh God.
Like that, and apparently the madness made him do the assault. Like, I'm not buying it. Also,
Yeah.
yeah, it's the
We're
one
moving
mark.
on. We're moving
However, we
on.
do end the issue on a high note.
Yeah.
Uh,
Once again,
inspired by Diana Rockwell,
once
Wonder Woman
again,
is sent
I can't.
back off to
Okay.
man's world.
All right. One more emotional goodbye scene. Diana leaves Paradise
This
Island.
time, hey, this time it's different. Hippolyta isn't sad. She is just
Yeah.
happily seeing her daughter off. Um, and she is hailed. We see a scene with Steve Trevor and Etta Candy flying back to Boston while Diana flies by.
Mindy and whoever she has
At the
she has met
moment,
with. And
uh,
Julia and Vanessa sitting at
uh,
home.
first Vanessa is being a teenager. It's like the light just went out in my room. There's something short. It's like I can't see what I'm reading. Oh, go into my room and study. Your room doesn't have a TV set. I'm like, oh, you're such a teenager. Besides, I saw sparks. What if my room catches fire or something? With my Walkman on, I might not be able to hear it till it's too late. Just come and look. and Julie's just like, okay, I'm coming.
So she goes upstairs, and waiting in Vanessa's room is Diana, and she's returned. And it's a really great scene between the two of them.
That's just the perfect way to end the issue.
Yeah, and the collection as a whole. So
Yes.
that is Wonder Woman by George Perez, Volume
Volume
1.
one.
I am so glad you took to this as much as you did.
I just wish it was going for a 10 right until that last little bit. Like,
Overall, that's got to place it pretty high on your overall ranking, right?
yeah, it's sadly not top 10 because the top 10 is like a lot of just 10 out of 10 or like 9.5s. I've had to
And
start.
we've read some pretty airtight slots there, you know.
Yeah.
Some that are very difficult to top. So
Yeah, but it's currently sitting at number 12.
well,
Um,
that's not terrible. That's not terrible
yeah,
at all.
it's right at the top of the 9
Because
out
you
of
do it also by
10s.
individual book, not episode, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So
Um,
interesting.
so
So yeah, that was the first volume of Wonder Woman by George Perez. We also did watch some adapted material for this. First, you watched the 2009
2000,
Wonder Woman animated film with Carrie Russell, I believe is her name, as Wonder Woman.
yes. Alfred
Was
Molina
as
as
Ares. Um, Nathan Fillion as Steve Trevor, and
Trevor.
Rosario Dawson as Artemis. Really great cast on that film altogether. There's some really great choices in there, and I like some of it's kind of a modern retelling of the early Perez stuff.
Yeah, some things are changed.
Gail Simone was on writing it as well, so
Yes.
that's really cool.
Like my one complaint about that movie is I don't like their treatment of Etta Candy. Like
Yeah, I get that.
they made her kind of just a bitch.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, definitely.
but it was really well acted, especially for like an animated film from 2009.
Yeah, and
Uh,
it's one of the earliest DC animated universe originals. So
uh,
yeah, it's great. I really like it. And then you also watched the 2017 film called Wonder Woman, starring Gal Gadot and David Thewlis, and I don't know why that was the first name that sprung to mind.
uh,
Chris Pine and Connie
um,
Nielsen and a lot of great people.
Robin Wright, Lucy Davis, a lot of great things.
There are a lot of really great names attached to that film. There really
Yes.
are.
I love the world. I like the world. That it's honestly it's a good film. I really like the way Patty Jenkins directs with a very different touch to the rest of the DCEU.
Yeah, definitely.
Like she also she makes the historical setting work. Um, she draws a lot from the Perez run, as well as a couple of little minor moments from like the best bits of Johns' characterization in Justice League. Um,
Yeah.
like
I
there's
mean,
a variation
like when I'm assuming you mean like when Diana throws down, she fucking throws down.
throws down,
Um,
as well as the ice cream scene.
oh yeah, the ice cream scene. I feel like it's fucking mandatory anymore. Ever since the Justice League origin, it's just like you have to do the ice
The
cream
ice
scene
cream
at
scene.
some point.
Uh,
Um,
I also
that's
think it's really interesting. My one complaint is some of the historical inaccuracies,
I
mainly with
get that.
our main German villain being an actual historical figure who survived the war and then had an influence on Germany for the next 10 to 15 years before his death in 1937.
See that I did not know.
Yeah.
Do you know who he's played by though? He was in another comic book film.
Who's he played by?
I can't think of the actor's name, but he was in another comic book film. He was in X-Men Origins Wolverine, and he played a young William Stryker.
Okay, so I have seen
He's
X-Men
he's he's the
Origins
he's the guy that
Wolverine.
he's the guy that makes his claws metal. That's it.
Oh, that guy.
He's that
Okay.
guy. Yeah. Um.
I barely remember that film.
Fair enough.
But yeah, it's
Also, that was your first exposure to, to Doctor Poison.
is that an actual like DC villain?
Yeah. Yep.
Um,
Yeah. Doctor
okay,
Poison's a real character. Yep.
okay.
Um.
She's
Yeah.
terrifying. Uh,
Yeah. Just a really cool idea for a character. Love the trench scene in that. I think that's awesome.
there's a lot of good sequences. I again, I kind of wish that Patty Jenkins was given a bit more, was able to then maybe even. I said this to you in a DM when Zack Snyder had to leave Justice League. Um, that Patty Jenkins was actually the one who was brought in instead of Joss Whedon. Like
Yeah, I
it,
agree.
I
Again, it still wouldn't be like a Zack Snyder replacement film, but like it would be much better than Justice
it would
League.
be better, and I think it would have kept the DCEU going. Um,
Yeah,
a little more just because. The big problem with Justice League 2017 is that it changes the tone, changes everything so much, and just doesn't like it turns off the few people who were already enjoying what Snyder was doing, but it also doesn't really engage anyone who wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like
definitely. Which is
it,
so weird because I remember when it came out, like Justice League was originally like the highest rated DCEU film right after Wonder Woman. Um,
I
yeah,
think it was
it's
only because there was a bit more humor to it.
yeah,
And
it's so weird.
yeah.
But hey, I mean, me and Jacob clearly have thoughts on how DC films should be handled. So seriously, go check out that video on Blood Donut Studios.
And if for everyone who subscribed to us on YouTube, thank you. We are currently, as recording this, sitting at 105 subscribers.
Yes,
Like
yeah. So that's really cool.
it's
And
really cool.
yeah. What else was I gonna say? Oh yeah. So also, as far as the adapted material next time, because you should know already that we're covering volume 2 of the George Perez stuff next time, which is issues 15 through 24 plus the first annual. As far as adapted material goes, though, next time you're gonna watch Wonder Woman 1984, which is the sequel to the 2017 film. And then I also mentioned, because Julia Capitelis, to watch Wonder Woman Bloodlines, which is the 2019 animated film, which is part of that larger continuity. Um, and also it features a character that is actually in Volume 2, which I hadn't realized until after I recommended it to you, one of the villains in it. So that's really cool.
Very good. So we will have that. Uh,
Yeah. So
then
be sure to check that out next time.
and then after that, something completely different that
Something new. Do you have any guesses for that?
I do, but I won't tell you until we get there.
Okay. All right. Gotcha. I think you have a decent idea. Maybe. I don't know. It's tough to tell with this one.
Yeah.
So yeah, so find out next time. Until next time, as always, thank you all so much for listening. It really does mean a lot. As always, follow us, rate us, leave a comment if you can, wherever you're listening to us. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor, and of course we're on YouTube as well. Go check us out there. It really does
Leave
mean
us
a lot.
comments, follow us on Twitter.
Yes, follow us on Twitter. I am at Jomo with 3 underscores. He is at Newt5996. Those, as always, will be in the link. Will be links in the description below. I can fucking speak. And then
as well
also
as a link to purchase Wonder
yeah,
Woman
you can
Volume
buy
1
Wonder
and
Woman by
Volume
George Perez
2.
Volume 1, and also Volume 2 will be down there. Go check those out. And there's one more thing. What the fuck was it? I just had it in my head. God damn
Next
it.
week,
Next week. Oh, that's right. That's what I was going to say. Thank you so much. We have a bonus episode coming out next week. Our 5th bonus episode. We're covering our first ever piece of Marvel content on the podcast. So that's really cool. Go check us out. That's already recorded. If you follow us on Twitter, you already know what it is. But yeah, so be on the lookout for that next week. We had a guest on for that one. And yeah, that's really exciting. So I guess that's about does it. Anything else?
that
Are we
does it.
good? We good
I think we're
to
good.
all right, awesome. So until next time, this has been Joey Morgan.
And Jacob Licklider,
Goodbye.
goodbye.